my days and the struggle of balancing being a mom and having children and school and sports and school activities are probably no different than most working moms. It's the same struggle of balancing it all and fitting it in all the hours in a day that I had when I was a law professor and when I was on the Court of Appeals. So I think in that respect, my challenges are no different than the challenges of all working moms. I think the juxtaposition can be funny. I have 4 children who are still in high school or grade school. So in the mornings, we're getting them out of the door to school, and our youngest son is 11, and he has Down syndrome, and his bus picks him up last. The other kids are already gone. And he really enjoys music, so we're packing his backpack, and I'll be packing my briefcase, and he chooses the songs. And so there was one day last term when Benjamin had been choosing some music, including, it's not so much, the opera classic, Who Let the Dogs Out? And I get to the court, and in the court, as you're walking in the hallways in the basement area, have portraits of all the justices who have served before, and they're very dignified looking. And all along in my brain, don't listen to that song if you don't want it to be in your mind all day long. I'm walking down looking at these dignified men and Who Let the Dogs Out's on the... So I think there's a juxtaposition. I leave work and then I'll wind up at a volleyball game with a bunch of the other moms. Or one day last week I was serving hot lunch at my kids' school as a parent volunteer. But I think all of those things are things that in my current position in particular I really appreciate, because they're very grounding and they keep me very much rooted in real life with regular people, like the kinds of moms I've been sitting at the sidelines of soccer games with my whole mothering career. So
well, good for you. Yeah. Following graduation from Notre Dame, you clerked, as you mentioned, for Judge Silberman on the Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit and for Justice Scalia on the Supreme Court. And you've expressed great respect for both of them. Particularly, you've talked about Justice Scalia. And I think after your appointment to the court, you were quoted as saying Justice Scalia's judicial philosophy was also your judicial philosophy. Is that still true, and how would you describe that philosophy?
So Justice Scalia was very well known for his commitment to both originalism and constitutional interpretation, and textualism in the interpretation of statutes. And I would say that you could boil both of those judicial philosophies down to the proposition that the text is the law and the text controls. And I share that philosophy and I share that commitment. So I think there would be very little difference between us if you asked about the central role of the judge, to adhere to the text when the text has a clear answer, and to not impose one's own views on the law, to respect the law. We certainly have some differences in style. For example, he's a fantastic writer, was very well known for being a fantastic writer. And he was, he could be a lot, like I would say, when you're at a restaurant and you're looking at the menu and it's trying to tell you how spicy things are, and it might have like 3 jalapenos next to one, and then I'm more of the 1 jalapeno judge than the 3, so I keep the heat. I tend to prefer the heat to be a little bit lower, say in dissents or in interchanges back and forth, but that made his a lot more entertaining to read.
Yeah, right. Well, I suppose coming from a Southern Italian background, he put more peppers on the...
More fire, yes,
yeah,
more fire.
Sure. Justice Scalia participated in a conversation as part of this series in this very auditorium, tragically only a few months before his death. Could you talk a little bit about started talking about Justice Scalia just now. Could you talk about your relationship through the years, both as a clerk and then the years since you were a clerk?
Yes, Justice Scalia was a great role model for a young lawyer. I mean, he was very funny, so being his clerk involved hearing lots of funny stories, being regaled with stories. I recall a couple times hearing him singing opera in his office, from the outside clerk's office. But he was very committed. My co-clerks and I were talking about this recently, actually. we were asking each other what we thought was the most important piece of advice that the justice gave us, and he said, always make it a virtually immovable commitment to be home to have dinner with your family, because that's the most important thing, no matter how much you have to work later at night to do it. And I think, and we all remembered being very struck by that. And so I think even apart from everything he taught me about the law and how to think about the law and how to think about being a judge, I think he was an example just as much about being a person, being a person who, he was great at maintaining friendships with, people who had views who were very different from his own. I mean, his friendship with Justice Ginsburg was, a great example of that. But he was full of life, and he didn't hold back. And he liked to say, I attack ideas, not people. And that if you can't tell the difference between the two as a judge, you're in the wrong line of work. And so as fiery as he might have been because of his Italian background, he was very good at maintaining relationships and being committed to his family, and I think that was a very important example to me, so I didn't just learn law.
Well, that was a remarkable friendship between Justice Scalia and Justice Ginsburg, and she told stories of the two of them, and was very proud that an opera had been written about their friendship. I think it's called Scalia Ginsburg, and she explained since he was a senior justice, his name came first. But I've never seen the opera. Have you?
I actually have not seen the opera either.
Apparently, in the opera, he was imprisoned for excessive dissenting, and then somehow she rescues him coming through a glass ceiling, which he breaks. So they had a wonderful relationship between the two of them. When you joined the court in 2020, I wanted to ask you, were there some justices that reached out and were even more welcoming than others? You mentioned Justice Kavanaugh put on this New Orleans dinner for you. But how was it joining the court?
So I joined the court during COVID, so the pandemic was still raging and people hadn't fully come back to work. Although when I was sworn in, I wouldn't say that any one of my colleagues was more welcoming than another because they were all equally welcoming and wonderful. So when I was sworn in by the Chief Justice, Justice Breyer was still remote. He was still in Boston, and so he couldn't, it was a problem for him because he couldn't travel without, greater exposure. But those who were in Washington came to the court for the swearing in and sat. We just did it in a big conference room, and everyone had masks on and spread out, socially distanced in the conference room. Everybody was there. Everybody was warm. One of the things that meant a lot to me in that beginning was it was right around Halloween, and Justice Sotomayor came to my office, and Jesse, my husband, had come for the swearing in, and our children were back in South Bend, and he was going to be leaving in an hour or two to go back to South Bend to hold down the fort while I was commuting back and forth from Washington. And Justice Sotomayor came in, and she had made bags of Halloween candy for each one of my children for Jesse to take back to them. I had no staff. I went in, I had no staff, no law clerks, no office supplies or anything that day. You can't really hire a staff before you're confirmed, and so it leaves you scrambling. And I had my first oral arguments in just a few days, and I didn't even know how to get into the computer system. And Justice Gorsuch found out, and so he just dispatched his assistants to come over, and they answered my phones, and they stocked me up with office supplies, and it was just thing after thing. I was living by myself 2 weeks of a month in Washington in the house that I was renting, and I had dinner invitations from my colleagues and lunch invitations, and they did everything in their power to make me feel welcome at what was a difficult time. They had just lost a beloved colleague, and Justice Ginsburg had just passed away. Everyone was under the stress of COVID, and everyone went above and beyond to really make me feel welcome.
That sort of leads into the next question I was going to ask you. There have been some extremely sharp differences in cases the last couple of years between the majority and the dissent. And have those sharp differences affected the relationship between the justices at all? Does it continue to be a place where justices embrace one another?
It is. And I'll go back to that saying that I just repeated from Justice Scalia, I attack ideas, not people. I think that is what opinions are. You know, the fire gets put on the page, but it is not expressed in interpersonal relationships. I mean, the court decides issues of great importance. There are, lawyers on the court who are very smart, who are passionate about what they're doing. Convinced, because everyone gives a great deal of study and time and attention. You spend months with briefs and listening to oral argument when you first participate in it, listening again to oral argument, talking with your clerks, talking with colleagues. And at the end of that process, you are sure that your answer is right. But when you're on a multi-member court, there will be others who see it differently. In many cases, especially some of the ones that are the most difficult, and some of the ones that really press on jurisprudential divides, say between originalism or textualism and a theory that leaves more play in the joints of the text. And so those are very difficult cases in which jurisprudential disagreements can be sharp, but it really does stay to the page. And I think, I think that's one reason why some of the things that we were saying at the beginning about this lecture are important. I think part of that is time spent. So we are in the building with each other. Justices have lunch every day that we have oral argument and every day after conference. So just coming off of these last 2 weeks when we are in session, that's 8 lunches. There was one lunch I couldn't go to because I had a child care issue. But we eat together, we spend time together, and I think when you know people as people, even it's not because I'm going to say change Justice Kagan's mind when we're talking about something. I'm not friends or friendly with her or show affection or warmth because I think
It's very disturbing to me to hear these people talk normally as if they're not literally writing the most egregious, perverted, and like they're literally molesting the Constitution every single day that Trump is in office. And there she is, just talking about like, oh yeah, Gorbich got me all of my office supplies when I got in. We're all buds. We're all best buds. I didn't have any assistants, and wow, look, Justice Sotomayor got my kids, it's fucking Halloween candy. You're normal. You're a normal person. Like, I hate that. Why can't you, if you're gonna be an evil supervillain, just be an evil supervillain. Don't be married with kids and getting Halloween fucking candy. Kill yourself. Sorry. Alright, this got linked to me in chat, in Discord, and
I think it would be shot.
You guys know I love capitalism. I hope you know that. I hope that you should know that I love capitalism. I'm just so fascinated by how easy it is for people to fall into like the very radical capitalism is the fault of everything. Capitalism is the reason for everything. Everything evil in the world can actually be traced back to capitalism. The billionaires are everything, and that's all that they'll ever be, and that's all that we will ever be. Like, I don't understand it. I don't understand how people fall so easy into it. I think that there are different moments in time that trigger sentiments like this. Like, hang on. Well, first of all, let me get my iPad. This is such a good iPad moment. Something that's always bothered me when people talk about, like, Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, socialist, progressive, right? Is that that's how they counter it. Is Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, and then socialist and progressive. Like, Those aren't the opposites. Those aren't the counters. Those aren't the equals. It's, I mean, 2 seconds. How's everyone's chat leaderboard today? I saw James Charles, Life of Times of Charles or whatever, was number 1, as always. Or no, number 2. Hunter's number 1 today. Yay! Finally. All right. Okay, ready? This is what we have. Goes from left to right. Over here, we have Democrats. And then over here, we have Republicans. Those are the opposites, okay? Over here, we have liberal. And then what do we have on this side? What's the opposite of liberal? Is it conservative? No, it's socialist. It's socialism. Then over here, we have progressive. What's the opposite of progressing? What's the opposite of moving forward? It's going back. It's conserving. Right, conserving. For some reason, people wrongfully think, For some people wrongfully think that this socialism part goes on this side. It doesn't. It used to be the case that all of the Democrats and all of the progressives were also socialists, okay? It used to be the case that you had liberal Republicans and conservatives. That is no longer the case. That is no longer what the political parties represent. That is no longer at all anything. You know who's socialist? The fucking Republicans right now. With all of the state-run, the state-funded, the state-controlled fucking, oh my god, like all of the different Republican federal funding. Oh, we want state and church-controlled schools and educations now. Does that sound liberal to you? Does that sound like a liberal three-tiered justice system, right? That's also, what is it? Oh my god. This is also like liberal values, is having like a 3-tiered, you have the judiciary, you have the legislative, and you have the executive. And it's in that order where the judiciary is supposed to be like the final arbitrator and the final like go of it. The legislator makes the laws over here. The executive enforces the laws over here. And then the judiciary is up to them to determine which laws are and aren't legal, as pertains to the Constitution. Okay? Anyways, all this to say, I'm obviously on this side of the spectrum, right? Like, we all know that. I'm over here. I'm on the Dems, liberal, progressive side. Okay, thanks. This sentiment... Oh, also... Hang on, let me just explain why. So liberal is like the idea that you have like freedom, right? That's it. That's all liberal. In like the most basic form, it's that you have like freedom and liberty over yourself, right? When you think about that in terms of like the economy, in terms of how we make money, it's kind of like every man for themselves. So every, you know, I don't even know how to draw that to indicate it. But it turns into capitalism. Because everyone is fending for themselves, everyone has the freedom to do whatever they want, theoretically, right? In a capitalistic society. Free market, you're able to do everything. The opposite of that, or the natural conclusion to that, the natural counter to that people have is, is equality. That's the difference. Is... Liberalism focuses on freedom as it pertains Oh my god, hang on. Let me formulate this. Freedom over yourself primarily, and then infringing on other people's freedom is like the secondary thing, is when you start infringing on other people's freedom and equality. Socialism, or the natural progression of that, is focusing on equality first, and then you focus on everyone's freedom. So this is like you focus on everyone being free, and then you kind of try and figure out how everyone's equal after that. This socialism lends itself to just everyone being equal, and then you kind of have to figure out how everyone gets their freedoms back after that. As an economic system, not as a social system, which this is an economic thing. This isn't the social thing. Okay. Anyways, I think that's like the fundamental, I think that's the biggest difference between these ideas, is liberal is focusing on your freedom of yourself and then figuring out how to make everyone equal and how to make everything fair after that. Socialism is figuring out how to make everything fair and how to make everything balanced before, and then trying to figure out if you can keep this track of covering the video, it could be a banger YouTube segment for comment. Guess we'll see. Why is this not shrinking? Be smaller. Boom. What? What the fuck? But I keep running. What the fuck? Can you just squish? Jesus Christ. Alright, there you go.
Shocking to say this, but Gen Z has been...
Did I even finish this thought? I feel like I feel like where we are right now in society is we're obviously living in a capitalistic society, and the natural counter to capitalism is socialism. I feel like we've hit all of these, like, recent points of tension, like, really, really recently, that is causing, like, this huge increase in radicalization. So, like, the first... I don't even know if this would be first. There's probably more. But I feel like one major, like, everyone was like, wait, what the actual fuck is going on? Was, like, the UHC assassination, the United Healthcare CEO. Everyone, like, the reaction to that was so scary because everyone was so quick to throw everything away, to burn it all to the fucking ground. You didn't see any protests about people, like, advocating for a better health insurance from United CEO. You didn't see anyone talking about the lawsuits that were going on before. You didn't see anyone talking about or any stories or any type of, like, huge uprising or legislative like or any type of, like, attention being brought to any of the issues that got surfaced after this assassination. And that's terrible. That is absolutely terrible and awful that no one was talking about those things until someone died to bring attention to it. But we shouldn't be encouraging that. And that was just, like, an insane acceleration. Like, all of these young people online that have pretty much, hang on, sorry. All of these, people online, that online within itself is just, like, its own, like, everyone knows that you get in your own echo chamber and you're not really, like, informed on everything that you think you're informed on, and it's the algorithm and whatever, okay? People that are online, they're already having this huge, like, very individualistic feeling of, like, everything that's happening is happening to me. Like, I'm getting this video on my For You page about how to make bean soup. I don't like bean soup. How do I make it without bean soup? Like, it, obviously the video is not for you then, but that thought doesn't cross their mind. It's, you have to comment, how do I make this without the beans? Because everyone just has like this huge, like, it's all happening to me, right? Everyone feels like super individualistic. When something hugely, like, traumatizing, I guess, like this happens, and you start seeing all of these stories online about, oh, my grandpa was denied this coverage because of this, and my mother was denied this coverage because of this, and there was actually this story of this little girl who got denied this coverage because of this, and you start hearing all of these different, like all of these different stories, and you start internalizing it as if it's happening to you. Like, oh my gosh, I am actually going to die. The United States is preying on my downfall and trying to kill me because of the capitalistic nature of this for-profit insurance company. And oh my gosh, I'm looking at all these stories around me, and I'm actually finding out, and I'm actually woke, and I just took the red pill, and now I know that the evil billionaire at the top actually used an AI to kill people. And because the evil billionaire at the top just wanted to make more money and not spend money on labor, on time, and he just used an AI to kill people, that is now an indication that everything has gone to shit, that there is nothing worth saving at all in this universe, and that, like, in this country, and that we just have to burn it all to the ground and start killing fucking CEOs. How do we get there? How do we get there? How do we get there? Doesn't make any sense, okay? United Healthcare CEO, this was in, like, what, December of 2024? Around there, right? Donald Trump gets elected into office. We're already scared of this. I don't think anything happened on, like, the set inauguration day, other than, like, you saw, like, all of these billionaires at the inauguration. Is that you saw that, like, his cabinet had all of these billionaires in them, and you started seeing all of these more, like, the more oligarchical. You had Biden's farewell address too, was like the whole oligarchy thing, right? Beware of the technocrats. Okay. Then, as soon as Trump gets into office, he basically does everything physically possible to make everyone, like, I don't know how to describe this. It's literally like controlled opposition. Like, he did everything to give the left something to say about capitalism. So it's like he did everything in his powers to make people anti-capitalist, and it's like the same way that right now Donald Trump is doing everything to affirm the the Middle Eastern narrative that, like, oh my god, the West just keeps on bombing us when we're doing nothing, and we're literally just minding our own business, and the left just keeps on bombing us for no fucking reason. And then we do that, like, that is feeding into the narrative. That's feeding into it because why? Because you want to accelerate things, because you want to raise the temperature. That is exactly what he's been doing in the economy. Like, he between the tariffs, oh my god, between his crypto scream, between Elon Musk, between like Peter Thiel, I don't need, there's so much. The list goes on and on and on, bro. Okay? All of this is all leading to this growing anti-capitalist sentiment. All of it is because of the billionaires. All of it is because of the people at the top. All of it is because of the oligarchy. All of it is because of evil money. People are greedy. People are. This is also very nihilistic of everyone to assume, by the way. But this comes with, like, a baked-in assumption that everyone is just, like, inherently so fucking greedy that, like, money is, like, the absolute, like, oh my god, I'm gonna come. I can't do anything else other than money. Like, I can't think of anything else other than money. Which I don't think anyone sees the world through any type of lens like that for anything, not just money. I'm not saying that nothing I'm not saying that these things aren't, like, concerning, or that we should just, like, look at all of these, like, different, like, shortcomings in our capitalistic society within, like, the healthcare industry, or within all, like, there needs to be something done about the amount of billionaire influence in office right now. Like, that's absolutely fucking crazy how many billionaires are in cabinet. It's insane how many different like big oil people got chosen to be in not just this first cabinet, not just the second cabinet, but also his first cabinet. Why the fuck was Rex Tillerson, like, Secretary of State? Strange, right? Like, I agree, right? My issue with incendatory titles like this. You're not crazy. Capitalism ruined dating. Obviously, it's clickbait, okay? But you're gonna tell me that there's people out there that don't actually, like, I'm gonna guess what this video is gonna say. I haven't seen it yet, but I think I saw this in the thumbnail, that there were, like, dating apps in it, right? Probably gonna say that we are too commoditized in our dating, like, scene, in our dating expectations, because we have gotten too much access to, like, I don't know, pornographic material through, like, advertising and content, and so we have really fucked up expectations of what dating should be like, and we also have really fucked up expectations of how interaction should look like because of all of this, like, capitalism. And dating apps make it so much worse, because then you have to pay to be dating, and they're making money off of keeping you off the dating app, on the dating app. So it's all capitalism. Okay, I think that's what they're gonna say. We'll see. The problem that I have with this sentiment of just blanket hating capitalism is that the opposite to it is socialism. And I don't really. Well, here's another concerning thing. More people are claiming to be socialists when they don't know what socialism is, which is very weird. I went to a Kamala rally during the campaign, and I met a lot of socialists there, and it was really concerning, because I was like, Kamala Harris is a capitalist. What are you doing here? And she was like, no, I'm just like I'm like a Bernie socialist. Okay, like a democratic socialist? No, like, I actually do think that we should, like, get rid of, like, every single capitalistic, like, aspect of society. Wait, what? So why are you voting for Kamala Harris? Like, I don't think that people know what socialism, like, entirely entails. I think that people want a reformed capitalistic society, and that they see any type of reform as going to full-blown socialism. But I don't think that people realize that, like, in a full-blown, I don't know. This is what I'm trying to research right now. Do people actually know what a full-blown socialistic society would work like? Because it hasn't worked ever, and I don't know why we would even the same thing with democracy. Like, democracy is the best form of government except for all the others. Capitalism is the best form of economic policy except for all the others. Like, that's the quote, right? I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility for there to be, like, some unfound system of economic whatever. What is going on in chat? Are we debating abortion right now? We're practically living in a radical transitional time in which the old rules are changing way too quickly and people don't catch up because we're all trying to survive in a capitalistic economy. I just don't think that that's true. Like, like, evidence? Source? All bourgeoisie are the same. Technocrats are no different. Okay. They're heroes on both sides of good and evil. Artificial scarcity. We live in abundance. I don't know if I agree with all. I don't know if this is what you mean. But I do think that people have like a really, like, I don't know, like there is this really weird artificial scarcity mindset in America, right? Where it's like, amongst mostly like white men, right? If someone else is making money, that means that I'm losing money. Like, there's not enough money for them to be making money and me to be making money. We can't both be making money. If they're making money, I have to be losing money. I think that's fucked. Were you born a Democrat or Republican? What? I think there's a distinction between healthy capitalism and end-stage capitalism, which is where we seem to be going now. I don't think that we're at end-stage capitalism yet, but I don't think that anything has happened for us to believe that it is like completely gone to shit and us to like go full accelerationist of like, all right, time's up. That was a good try. Socialism is not inevitable. This is like the most brain dead, like, are you serious? This sentiment is so toxic because it's like, indicative of going towards a system that is the complete opposite of the one that we have now. In order for that to happen, the one that we have now would have to completely fall. And in order for that to happen, everyone would have to be really fucked and it'd have to be super accelerationist and really, really radical. So, I don't... Oh, so you just brought up what is a baby out of fucking nowhere. That's just really weird of you. Really strange. Why did it delete all of these? Wow. This is crazy. It's so fucking strange. Alright.
Most young men are single. Most young women are not. As of 2022, Pew Research Center found 30% of U.S. adults are neither married, living with a partner, nor engaged in a committed relationship.
According to a new report by the Norwegian Consumer Council, dating app OkCupid sent highly personal data about sexuality, drug use, political views, and more to an analytics company. OkCupid, Grindr, and Tinder also sent GPS coordinates of users to outside companies, according to the study.
When I say women deserve less, it's for a multitude of different reasons, but
I heard that you don't know how to get scored by men. And I heard that some of you, and honestly, my heart breaks every time I think about this, are paying for men.
You're wrong. You're poor.
So I don't think it would be shocking to say this, but Gen Z has been having some dating issues. For the past half decade, we have seen a rising discourse between men and women regarding our roles and relationships in today's world, as well as an increased frustration with dating apps. You know, the things that were said to make matchmaking more convenient and promised to solve our dating issues. And although we could blame the battle between feminist ideals and patriarchal ideas for why dating is so toxic, I think there is a greater underlying issue. Our economic system has made it infinitely more difficult to find a partner. Our system has robbed us of healthy communities that once formed naturally. Then, it skews our perception of what healthy relationships are by bombarding us with media. And finally, to rub salt in the wound, it gives us a terrible monetized alternative as a way to profit off of us. There is money to be made in keeping you lonely, frustrated, and hooked on all these platforms. But first, hi, my name is Eli, and welcome to my channel where I talk about anything that I find interesting. And now with my introduction out the way, sit back, relax, get cozy, as I explain how capitalism ruined relationships. Over the past few decades, we have seen a general rise in loneliness, and this loneliness predates the pandemic, with a 2019 Cigna study reporting that 3 in 5 US adults, or about 61% of us, feel lonely. People have been and are feeling this lack of unity and a general lack of human connection. And I'd argue that our loneliness is because the way our system is built. Our economic system prioritizes maximized profits. That drive to maximize profits, along with a number of other factors, has led to the cost of living increasing astronomically. Well, you know what hasn't increased to compensate for everything costing more? Wages. The average wage is not enough to live anymore. And since we have to work more to survive, that means less time to socialize. Compared to the golden age of America, which wasn't so golden because of a number of reasons, things have just gotten too expensive compared to how much money we make. Housing is more expensive, food, rent, and other necessities are just too much. And just to reinforce my point, I would like to use the help of our trusty friend, mathematics. Let's start off with the median salary, which is about $60K. After taxes, that's about $46,000. $46,000 divided.
It's actually insanely. Is that real? That's insanely low. That is insanely low.
And just to reinforce my point, I would like to use the help of our trusty friend, mathematics. Let's start off with the median salary, which is about $60K. After taxes, that's about $46,000. $46,000 divided by 12 is $3,800. Now, $3,800 a month sounds pretty decent until you start factoring in living expenses. The average rent in America is $1,625. Utility are $250 to $300 on top of that. You need a car, right? The average monthly car payment for a used car is $525. You probably went to college. Most Americans do. That is another $536 a month because you got to pay off that student loan debt. You get sick, you need insurance. And if your employer provides it, that's another $111 a month. You need food, laundry detergent, hygiene products, general groceries. That's around $250 to $350. You need a phone plan, and the cheapest phone plan from T-Mobile is like $50 per month. You need internet. Internet access is $70 a month. Taxes and fees included. All of this leaves you with about $230 to $330 extra a month. And this is...
What the fuck? Is this real? Why have I never seen this before? It's actually insanely terrifying. Maybe I am a socialist. I'm gonna get blackpilled from this. No, I'm just kidding.
It's not including a gym membership. It's not including a laptop. It's not including a television. It's not including investments, a healthy retirement fund, a 401k, which is technically...
Is this real? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I love you, but is this real? I was personally affected by this loneliness he mentioned. I had trouble connecting in my youth due to stuff like infrastructure. I love you, but are you... Okay.
It'd be an investment, I know. An emergency fund, getting things for the holidays, buying things for your family, birthdays. None of those things are factored in. Living off of the average salary leaves you with nothing to save for. You can't even save for a down payment on a house anymore because the average house is like $400K. And just to clarify, I understand there may be exceptions to this rule.
Okay, so we raised the minimum wage. Now what? Raise the salary. Everyone would make more money. Now what? Are we still socialist? Are we still lonely? Are we still dying? Now that I'm rich, why don't bitches want me?
I'm going based on averages. So I don't want to see nobody in my comments being like, oh, my rent's under $1,000. My groceries are under $200. Bro, we get it. You live in Oklahoma. All y'all got out there is Shea Gilgeous Alexander. That income is just barely enough to survive. So if you plan on getting ahead in life, or at least living a comfortable lifestyle, what you gotta do? You gotta work overtime. You gotta pick up a second job. You gotta pick up a side hustle. You literally gotta do whatever you can to get ahead. And all this working promotes hyper-individualism. Think about it. People view others as nuisances and liabilities instead of as opportunities to build human connection. Our system forces us to prioritize ourselves over anything else because we have to. There's no time for community. And if there's no time for community, there is no time to meet people. You can't visit your friends if you have to work a 12-hour day. It's impossible. I want you to think about it. When was the last time you spoke to your neighbors? And I mean like not just a passing hi, I mean had a conversation with your neighbors.
Well, okay, is it average rent in the country? Because average doesn't mean shit. Like that's like the first thing that you learn in the stats class is that average doesn't mean anything because you could just have a graph that looks like this, like, and this would be technically, hang on, right? Like this is what you learn in stats. Like you could have a something that looks like this. Hang on. Right, where it's like this, and 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 then the average for all of those, right, would be like over here. And then you could also have something that looks like this, where it's like this, and then it's like this, and then it's like this, and then 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 this. And then this would also average out to like around here probably. Right? That's why averages don't mean anything. What you want is the median. The median would give you whatever the middle point, like if you have like 3, 5, 6, 6, 7, right? Like your median there is going to be 6. As opposed to the average, which would be whatever all of these are divided by 5. Right? You want the middle point, because then that represents what's the most, there's another type of graph called a box and whisker graph. It's my favorite type of graph because it's so descriptive. And it looks like this. This is always the median point of a box whisker. And you're always going to have half of your data set above and then half of your data set below. So it gives a really good holistic view of all of the data points, because you know that you have an equal spread of like, if this is going to be 50, you know that half of your data is above 50 and then half of your data is below 50. And then if this median point skews or moves around and like, let's say it's over here and it's like really, really low, and you have half of your data points down here, then this means that this is more concentrated over here than over here. So if this is 50 now, half of your data, this wouldn't be 50 now. This would be like 30 now. So that means a lot more of your data is skewed over here lower than it is up here higher. But the average could still be theoretically 50 if it was like distributed right. Stats lesson.
Even sat down and spoke with them or hung out with them. When was the last time you made a friend outside of school or outside of work? People barely have time for themselves. How are they going to make time for a whole other human being, let alone a whole community? And then when people get off of work, they're exhausted. They feel as if they don't have the strength to go out and socialize. What most people want to do when they get home is just shower, maybe watch a TV show, maybe scroll on their phone, eat a simple dinner, and go to bed. And then they gotta wake up and do the whole process over and over again.
I know I'm probably just being so dramatic and annoying, but this is my first job, like my first 9-to-5 job after college, and I'm in person, and I'm commuting in the city, and it takes me forever to get there. There's no way I'm gonna be able to afford living in the city right now, so that's off the table. Like, duh, if I was able to walk to work, it'd be fine, but I'm not. So it literally takes me, like, I leave here, like, I get on the train at 7:30, and I don't get home till like 6:15 earliest, and then like I don't have time to do anything. I want to shower, eat my dinner, and go to sleep. I don't have time or energy to cook my dinner either. Like, I don't have energy to work out. Like, that's out the window. Like, I'm so upset. Oh my god.
And that's not to mention the corporate side of making things more efficient. Every fast food place has a kiosk instead of, you going up to the cashier and ordering your food. There's no need to go to malls anymore because you can simply order things online. There was a human element to buying things. You got to know the people in your community. Now you just DoorDash your order. Now you don't gotta go to a supermarket, Instacart, or even certain stores have it that you do curbside pickup and you barely interact with the people. And it's cheaper for the corporation to do it this way because they don't gotta pay an extra worker to greet you if they have a kiosk. They don't have to pay for an extra cashier if they can get you to deliver. It's all about maximizing profits. And every time things become a little bit more efficient, a part of humanity just crumbles away and people inevitably become hyper individualistic. Our system breaks down community, and in the process makes it so much harder to find a potential soulmate. And then it sees this issue, and in order to solve the problem, provides us a terrible monetized replacement: the dating apps. Dating apps are known to be, in general, a terrible place to find a long-term partner. You can find so many stories online of people telling you their bad experiences on these apps: dry texting, ghosting, no matches, or even they go on a terrible date, maybe
This bitch def spends $600 a month on nails. Is that about me?
they end up in a situationship. It's very rare to hear a story of someone being like, yeah, I met my wife on Tinder. Yeah, I met my husband on Hinge. And it's not that it can't happen. It most certainly can, but it's just not likely. And these dating apps are bad for both sides. I've heard the expression that
Yo, how did my camera die already? Oh my goodness. That's insanity. Okay. What? Next on my list is a new fucking camera battery. Jesus. Yay. Why are we on Fred? What do you mean? This is like the best. Right? This is what I use for most of my stats. Is this not a good thing for like indexes and shit?
Dating apps are like a desert for men and a swamp for women. Men struggle to get matches if you're average looking dude. If you're gorgeous like me.
Really, nigga?
But if you're average looking dude, you're not gonna get no matches. It's gonna be super hard to find someone to match with you. And then when you get matches, when you get likes on your profile, those conversations are mad dry. It's very rare that something ends up happening from a dating app. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, women have so many options. Most of those options are not suitable. Most of the guys that are on these dating apps that have success are usually just looking for something casual. And if you're a girl looking for a long-term partner, that's not gonna work for you. So you end up having to resort to dry texting, seeing if dudes are serious, you know? But at the end of the day, these apps ain't going out of business. They might actually be going out of business.
What's up, Josh?
But not any.
Josh, are you in the Discord? I would add you as like one of my loyal Aryans. I don't know what your Discord name is though.
Anytime soon. People end up crawling back to them. Why? Because apps like Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, Christian Mingle, BlackPeopleMeet.com all have a way of manipulating your desire for human connection through what I call relationship gambling. These apps work a lot like slot machines. Once you sign up and create a profile, you're spinning that lever. And usually when you gamble, you lose a lot. It's the same with these apps. You're gonna go through dry periods where you get no matches, periods where you get likes but no matches, periods where nobody's paying attention to you. But then occasionally you get a match. And then in your brain, you're like, yeah.
I'm gonna get canceled. He just took over #1 so easy. That's so funny. Look at his profile picture. Does he look like an Aryan? Listen, we're all Aryans here.
Yes, I got a match, I won. But that's only half the battle. Because even though you technically won the gamble, you still have to have a coherent conversation on these apps, which good luck with that. And if the conversation goes well, then you have to make plans to meet with this person outside of the app. And even in the rare event where someone actually ends up acting on the plans that they made in these dating apps, people end up ghosting or disappearing because they believe that they could win big, that they could make more money on the gambling app, or if they could find someone better on the dating app. And that's exactly what these apps want. Because while you're gambling with your self-worth and self-esteem, they're gathering your data and selling it to the highest bidder. Fun fact, did you know that Tinder, Hinge, Match.com, and a bunch of other dating apps are owned by the same parent company? That's a lot of data that's being siphoned out of people. Just want you to know that. Anyway, they're out here convincing single people who are starved for attention, that the best way of increasing their chances of finding a partner is, instead of going outside and finding community, is to pay for the subscription tier of their dating app. And it gets bad. I remember when Tinder had their $500 a month paid tier that had some crazy perks. I know there was some poor soul out there that paid for that tier, expecting to get some sort of interaction, some sort of play, just to get nothing. You know how horrible that feels? By the way, they've since discontinued that tier, but the point still stands. All these dating apps have a paid tier because they want to monetize your desire for human connection, for romance, for someone to love you the way you love them. And so they sell you the false hope of finding a lifelong partner on an app full of people who are interested in short-term relationships. And then, when you inevitably fail, they go to you and say, hey, listen, if you give us a little bit of money, we'll make it easier for you to find the man or woman of your dreams. But it's all a sham. And yes, if you found success on dating apps, good for you. You beat the game. You gambled, you got your money, and you got out of there. But there are tons of people who are still sitting at the slot machine, hoping to win something, hoping to make some money, and just digging themselves into a deeper hole. And that's what these companies want. That's what these dating apps want. They want you to continue digging your self-esteem into a hole, a ditch, deeper and deeper until you feel like you have to pay. And I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna be like, Eli, these dating apps, they're not the issue. It's not capitalism that's the issue, bro. In reality, it's just that these people have unrealistic standards. And you're right, people's standards is out of control. But that's just a byproduct.
It's because of capitalism! It's because of capitalism. It's actually it's because of capitalism.
Of another way of monetizing our loneliness.
I knew it!
The third way. The social media apps. Okay, listen, I know I'm not the first to say this, but I'm gonna act like I am. Social media has been so toxic for dating and relationships. It has made dating more confusing, more frustrating, and just more difficult than ever. And to explain...
Do you know what? I'm so tired. I'm actually so tired of people blaming this on social media. Because, like, yes, I will blame it on social media too, but not the way that he's blaming it on social media. I blame it on social media because social media just does a really fucking good job of perpetuating, like human psychology on just, like, an insanely high magnitude. But, like, this is just humans. This is just fucking way humans work. Before social media, it was TVs, it was magazines, it was TV shows. Everyone wanted to look like Marilyn Monroe. Everyone wanted to watch the fucking cover of Vogue magazine, right? Like, it's not social media. Social media just accelerated it at an insane extent. But this is just the human psychology, unfortunately. This is just the way that people are. As long as there are better things out there, we will always want the better things, and we will always look at the better things and want the better things.
The link between capitalism, social media, and how it's had a negative effect on relationships. I gotta explain the goal of each social media app. Every social media app wants to make money, right? That's their goal. Capitalism, it's all about maximizing profits. I said that in the first section. So how do they make their money? Well, they want to keep you hooked on the platform as long as possible. That metric is called engagement. And how do they keep you engaged? Well, through the infamous algorithms. You see, every social media app, whether it be TikTok, Instagram, X formerly known as Twitter, or even YouTube, all have algorithms that are meant to keep you hooked on their platform as long as possible. And I know we talk about these algorithms as if they're this ethereal, mythical, low-key divine type of force that decides when to make some creators blow up and when to make other creators flop. But that's not really the case. These algorithms are simply lines of code that measure how much the audience is engaging with a video, and then it shows it to more viewers. If you're wondering, Eli, what does this have to do with relationships and dating and capitalism?
Should I do this more? I feel like this is like artificially creating a more personal relationship. him just keep on saying like, I know what you're thinking, Eli. I know what you're thinking, Eli. I know what you're thinking, Eli. I'm just gonna start doing that a lot. I know what you're thinking right now, Arya. What are you saying? Let me explain, okay? It creates such an artificially personal relationship with the audience.
I'm getting there. Be patient. You watched the first 2 sections already. Come on. So how is engagement measured? Well, it's measured through watch time, through stuff like comments, through likes, through interactions in comments, through how many times you rewatch the video. That's how engagement is measured on these different platforms, right? And what type of content is the most engaging? What content is going to get you the most watch time? It has to be something that stimulates your emotions. Specifically, 3 emotions. Content has to stimulate someone's humor, stimulate someone's anger, or it stimulates someone's horniness. Those are the 3 things that cause the most engagement. And you cannot argue it with me. There are studies on this. Twitter is its own case study with this, bro. I want you to think about your video feed. Go click on your Instagram Explore page, or just scroll through your TikTok For You page. It is going to be filled with posts that are funny, posts that make you angry, or the videos are going to make you act up a little bit. Now listen, funny posts with humor aren't really all that bad. It's the posts that rage bait and the posts that, make you act up that are the bad ones, because those are the ones that skew your perception. This is why the algorithm recommends manosphere content for a lot of young men, or all men are trash content for young women. Although the former is more common than the latter, because manosphere content low-key isn't that far from what regular people believe. The more videos you see bashing the opposite gender or the type of group that you want to attract, you're going to engage with that content. Whether you get angry and you watch the video and you start liking comments, or you go into the comments trying to defend your group or advocate for your group, it all counts as engagement. The algorithm notices how content that makes people feel vindicated.
I would want to know, like, obviously there's no way to do this, but like if you actually were to take into account like every minor effect that social media has on relationships as a whole, I feel like it would be a net positive to relationships, because it allows for long distance relationships. It allows for you to maintain like so many, like just long distance relationships alone. I'm kind of weirded out by like relationships, but like that's a thing that a lot of people do. I feel like posting on like social media for your partner is not unnormal or abnormal. Like having a private story dedicated to like your partner, or like a Finsta dedicated to like post, or like a Finsta where you just primarily post them, especially if you are long distance. Like FaceTimes. Like, I don't know, I feel like overall there are a lot of like minorly really positive things that get given to relationships and like human interaction from social media. And then like those are really tangible, and then like the ones against that are like, well, people have too high standards. Okay, but that's not social media. Like you're literally accessing FaceTime, or you're accessing someone's post because of social media. You're not only thinking, wow, I really want to fuck that bitch on my Instagram because of social media. Like if that bitch was in front of you on the street, you would also be thinking that? ?
Hated, a righteous type of anger, or content that makes people genuinely angry because they disagree with the premise, gets more engagement, and therefore it's able to send people down these rabbit holes where they end up in little things called, I don't know if you've heard them, echo chambers. All these content creators found out that all they gotta do is engagement bait a little bit, whether it be through rage bait or whether it be through lust bait, and they got you hooked. And then you out there all up in their comments liking these posts, and it's out here skewing your perception of how you view the group you want to attract. And then when you pull back and observe all of this, it's very easy to realize how social media has made dating awkward. You know how many posts I've seen of people bashing the opposite gender? It just makes everything frustrating. There's too many voices. And whether it's done intentionally or not, these social...
I hate that so much. Oh my god, wait, hang on. Scott Galloway says this. I love Scott Galloway, by the way. Scott Galloway says this a lot, which I think it's just such a, like, a really, like, cop-out, and really, like, taking all of the agency out of literally everyone on Earth ever. Like, women and men are fighting more than they've ever fought. Like, this is the greatest gender divide that we've ever seen. The greatest union that humanity has ever seen between man and woman is falling apart. And it's just because everyone just keeps on, like, shit-talking each other, because women would rather go into the woods with a bear and men would rather go into the bathroom with a fucking watermelon or a peach. Like, those are not the same thing. Like, not that also, but it's just so, everyone's talking so mean about each other online. Yeah, obviously you see more sentiments of like of women saying I hate all men, and men saying like fuck all women are the same. Who cares? As a woman who says I hate all men all the time, I am not actually, like, obviously it's a hyperbole. Just don't take it so seriously, and don't take it so offensively, and don't be such a baby about it. Like, I feel like women have been hearing so many kind of weird for women to choose bestiality. Yeah, no, why would we choose the bear? That's so funny. Like, I don't know, I feel like it's so strange to blame the rhetoric. Oh, well, people need to stop being mean. I'm victim blaming right now. People need to stop being fucking sensitive.
Very easy to realize how social media has made dating awkward. You know how many posts I've seen of people bashing the opposite gender? It just makes everything frustrating. There's too many voices. And whether it's done intentionally or not, these social media companies are warping how we view each other through these algorithms, all because it makes more money. That's where capitalism comes in, because the more engaged you are, the more data they can sell. Your time on the apps equals more money for the CEOs. These algorithms got people arguing about how men need to act this way and how women need to act this way, when these people don't even live up to the standards that they set, all in an attempt to capitalize off of you. These companies are taking advantage of your rage. They're taking advantage of our desire for entertainment, our desire for human connection. And whatever little free time we have is spent on these apps, helping them make more profit.
Now, I want to ask you a question. What happens when a generation of kids are born into a society that has deemed social connection to be inefficient and unprofitable? And then, after you strip them of all normal human social interaction, you repackage the human connection they so deeply desire and sell it back to them in a far worse state. You end up with the most narcissistic generation. A generation of people who have been taught that relationships are...
This is like an insane... That's like just an insane... There was nothing else? It's because of dating apps? And my generation is narcissistic because of dating apps, not because we were locked up in our rooms for literally 4 fucking years interacting with no one but ourselves. We're narcissistic and we're antisocial, and it's just because of dating apps and because of social media, because dating apps repackage loneliness. Like, what?
Entertainment, our desire for human connection, and whatever little free time we have is spent on these apps, helping them make more profit.
Now, I want to ask you a question.
No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. Who is spending all of their free time swiping on Tinder?
Taking advantage of your rage. They're taking advantage of our desire for entertainment, our desire for human connection, and whatever little free time we have is spent on these apps, helping them make more profit.
Now, I want to ask you a question. What happens when a generation of kids are born into a society that has deemed social connection to be inefficient and unprofitable? And then, after you strip them of all normal human social interaction, you repackage the human connection they so deeply desire and sell it back to them in a far worse state. You end up with the most narcissistic generation. A generation of people who have been taught that relationships are transactional. A generation that seeks lifelong business partners instead of soulmates. Under our current system, everything must be sold. Everything must turn a profit, and that includes love. That's why all these companies sell you the hope of finding a lifelong partner. It's why all these creators make all these rules about how to attract a partner and what to do with a partner, even though they're all unmarried. It's why a lot of Gen Z has given up on dating.
Arya, that's not what he said. He's just talking about the people who are using dating apps and seeking romance. His thesis with this entire video is that, like, the people, like, his thesis is that everyone is looking to social media to fix the loneliness that we're all feeling. Like, he's talking about this as, like, a widespread, like, cultural turn. Like, yeah, like, yes, in terms of just dating, but he's using this as, like, as a what's the word? As like projection onto what's happening.
Our system found a way to make love profitable. And I'm not arguing against the idea that patriarchy has hurt dating. It's a major reason why dating is so toxic. But with the disappearance of third spaces due to the system's desire to monetize everything, it has become extremely difficult to connect with people. But just because it's difficult doesn't mean you should give up. Because right now, you at least have a chance. But if you give up, you lose all chances of finding someone. I know the system is broken. And if I could change it, I would. I would love to see a 32-hour work week implemented. I would love to increase wages so that people can afford more leisure time. I would love to see more funding toward public spaces.
I feel like I missed this.
Dating apps are known to be, in general, a terrible place to find a long-term partner. You can find so many stories online of people telling you their bad experiences on these apps. Dry texting, ghosting, no matches, or even they go on a terrible date. Maybe they end up in a situationship. It's very rare to hear a story of someone being like, yeah, I met my wife on Tinder. Yeah, met my husband on Hinge. And it's not that it can't happen, it most certainly can, but it's just not likely. And these dating apps are bad for both sides. I've heard the expression that dating apps are like a desert for men and a swamp for women. Men struggle to get matches if you're an average looking dude. If you're gorgeous like me. Really, nigga? But if you're an average looking dude, you're not gonna get no matches. It's gonna be super hard to find someone to match with you. And then when you get matches, when you get likes on your profile, those conversations are mad dry. It's very rare that something ends up happening from a dating app. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, women have so many options. Most of those options are not suitable. Most of the guys that are on these dating apps that have success are usually just looking for something casual. And if you're a girl looking for a long-term partner, that's not gonna work for you. So you end up having to resort to dry texting, saying,
Is it me or is healthy gamer GG left or right wing when it comes to self-care? Is that oh, that's Dr. K? I was what's it called? I think this guy I don't think this guy is like political, where it's like left or right wing. What does that even mean? Like when it comes to self-care, how are you political when it comes to self-care? That's so bad. That shouldn't be a thing. We shouldn't be political when it comes to self-care. Like what? That shouldn't be left or right wing. If you mean in terms of like batshit crazy alpha like male fucking Andrew Tate, that's not Dr. K. That's not the vibe.
dudes are serious, you know? But at the end of the day, these apps ain't going out of business.
They might actually be going out of business, but not anytime soon.
People end up crawling back to them. Why? Because apps like Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, Christian Mingle, BlackPeopleMeet.com all have a way of manipulating your desire for human connection through what I call relationship gambling. These apps work a lot like slot machines. Once you sign up and create a profile, you're spinning that lever. And usually when you gamble, you lose a lot. It's the same with these apps. You're gonna go through dry periods where you get no matches, periods where you get likes but no matches, periods where nobody's paying attention to you. But then, occasionally, you get a match. And then in your brain, you're like, yes, I got a match, I won. But that's only half the battle. Because even though
if you press the American flag, you get a pink roll. Who's pink? What's the pink roll?
technically won the gamble, you still have to have a coherent conversation on these apps, which good luck with that. And if the conversation goes well, then you have to make plans to meet with this person outside of the app. And even in the rare event where someone actually ends up acting on the plans that they made in these dating apps, people end up ghosting or disappearing because they believe that they could win big, that they could make more money on the gambling app, or if they could find someone better on the dating app. And that's exactly what these apps want, because while you're gambling with your self-worth and self-esteem, they're gathering your data and selling it to the highest bidder. Fun fact, did you know that Tinder, Hinge, Match.com, and a bunch of other dating apps are owned by the same parent company? That's a lot of data that's being siphoned out of people. Just want you to know that. Anyway, they're out.
I mean, I feel like a lot of what he's saying isn't exclusive to dating apps. I don't know how to describe this in a way that doesn't sound like I'm just, saying this off vibes. It is just off vibes, actually, 100%. Oh my god, there is a pink roll. Whoa. But there's two. Is there two of each? There's 2 oranges and 2 yellows and 2 blues. And 2... Oh, no, there is 2 of each. Is that intentional? I don't know how to describe this. This is just based purely off of vibes, right? But, I think that this is an reoccurring theme that I see in these types of videos where they'll take a lot of different, social phenomenons, I guess, that are occurring, and then tie them in a way that makes it seem like this is the end-all be-all. And it just seems like a very, single... single-layered view, I guess, of seeing it. I understand this is my thing, too, also. If there are problems in the world, you should fix them instead of bitching about them. I hate that there are no third parties, or no third spaces, right? In general. I think that it sucks that there are no third spaces. I went to school in Boulder, and I realized how many fewer third spaces there are as compared to New York, because New York actually has a decent amount of third spaces that you can just hang out, right? like when I went to school, I would just like find like I would just make it my mission to like find third spaces. Like I would just I like set aside time, and then I did it when I came back and moved back home too, where I'd like set aside like literal weeks upon weeks where I was like, I'm gonna find like places to go to. I found a really cute flower cafe that I can go to with outlets that I can like go and do work in. That's a cute third space. Like I found like this really cute like little like petting zoo whatever that I didn't even know existed. Like I feel like a lot of these sentiments are better like your energy is better spent on fixing them in the real world, because it's actually really easy to like go out and like advocate for that than like bitching about it online. I don't know, maybe I'm just going based solely off of vibes here. I'm not talking about this guy in specific, but I've noticed a lot with people in like the real world, people my age that complain about, oh, there's no third spaces, there's no places to hang out. Don't you have access to your school library? Yeah. Don't you have access to your school planetarium? Yeah. Don't you have access to your like okay, so what are you bitching about? Like, you have access to all of these different things and you're just not using them? Like, do you want a sign in neon to say like third space for you to go hang out? Like, you have to actually go out and look for things, right? Like, you realize that it's not all gonna pop up on your TikTok For You page. Like, you have to go out into the real fucking world and like explore. I don't know, I feel like a lot of this is just like really like online. Like I don't know. I'm just talking off vibes. Joshua's already in the Discord and I already made him, I think I did, a what's it called? A notable, I think. He said his username was this one. This guy. I think he was asking to add him to notable, because I said anyone that has that rule is able to join the live channel whenever. Did I catch placeholder message? No, I did not. Wait, hang on. I don't know what I don't know what this is. Hang on. There's too many things going on. What is beeping? How can I tell which one is beeping? I just hear it. I don't know what it's actually, what the noise is actually making. All right, whatever. Oh my gosh, this is so cool! Whoa! This is goated. Awesome. This is sick.
Few ideas can polarize like socialism. Many see it as the path to freedom. Many others see it as the path to tyranny. This video won't pick sides in that debate. We're only here to answer the question, what is it? What is socialism? Many would say that the answer is simple, and they'd open a dictionary and read a definition about socialism being the government owning the means of production and directing the economy. That's definitely a significant understanding of socialism, but the problem is it's tied to a certain era, and many, if not most, of modern socialists don't go by it. So we're going to need something broader. But then if you ask those socialists what they think socialism is, their answer is often unusably broad, like saying socialism is the hope for human freedom and justice under the unprecedented conditions of life that humanity will face in the 21st century. So by that, pretty much anyone can be a socialist. This is the point where people usually do a lot of hand-wringing about how difficult it is to nail down a specific conception of socialism. I frankly don't think it's that bad. I think the best way to do this is to go through socialism chronologically, show where the ideas came from, where they converged, and where they split, and where that leaves us today.
I love that. It's so historical. So historical. So contextualized.
So most of this video is basically going to be a history of socialist thought. I think it'll help to start with some general comments. The first thing to say is that socialism as a political tradition emerged as a reaction against liberalism, specifically as a reaction against the Industrial Revolution. As liberalism grew in popularity and in influence, socialism grew along with it. So the histories of liberalism and socialism are intertwined, and you can even think of liberalism as a parent ideology of socialism. Liberalism can be understood as the political philosophy where individuals are held to be ends in themselves. Liberals want to create a political order where people can develop into whoever they want to be. They can think whatever they want to think, believe whatever they want to believe, and pursue whatever they want to pursue. Liberals primarily achieve that through law, notably by granting people rights. Those rights are designed to keep people from suppressing each other's individuality. Liberalism expressed as an economic philosophy is capitalism. So that's when you have property rights backed by law, and at least theoretically, a free market where people are free to exchange goods and services with others. In a liberal order, hierarchies naturally develop, and socialists traditionally concern themselves with negative.
Wait, I think I need to watch liberalism first before I watch socialism, actually. Because socialism is the response to liberalism, not the other way around. Socialism came after liberalism. Socialism is literally the antithesis to liberalism.
Liberalism. And I think... Hey, what's up, everyone? I have an opinion, and I think it's an opinion that a lot of people have. And what that opinion is the opinion that American political terminology is just too loose. There's too many words being thrown around without a sharply defined meaning behind them. And there must be a lot of strong contenders for loose terms in America, but one of the top contenders must be the term liberal. When people say liberal in America right now, they mostly use it as a synonym for Democrat or progressive or leftist. And that's a problem for two reasons. One is that it's redundant, even to the point of being confusing. And the other problem is that using it that way actively obscures the political tradition that liberal came from, which is liberalism. And I think as a result, people are losing touch with liberalism. They're not entirely sure what it
Should I lower it? Yeah, I'm playing music in the background. Is it too loud?
is or how it fits in with things. And people that do want to call themselves liberals in the way that relates back to liberalism are trying to find these roundabout ways of doing it, saying classical liberal or John Stuart Mill type of liberal, and the whole thing's a mess. So I think we need to sharpen things up. We can't let terms endlessly degenerate into meaninglessness and incoherency. So I thought that I would try to help by going through the evolution of the concept of liberalism in America, and going through the different ways that the term liberal was used in major time periods. And then when we get to the present, I'll make my own argument as to how we could better use the term liberal going forward. We do have people these days that call themselves classical liberals, I think kind of begrudgingly. But we're going to forget about them, and we're going to go all the way back to the 1800s, which gave us our first group of official liberals in America, the classical liberals, who basically workshopped liberalism into a coherent philosophy. They were inspired by a lot of earlier thinkers, but those people are more considered pre-liberals because the word liberal wasn't around yet. So what is liberalism, and who are liberals, what they come up with? Some people answering that question list a set of values that liberals try to embody, like being broad-minded, or having mutual respect backed by law, or being wary of tyrannical forms of power. And I don't think that's wrong, but I think there's one value for liberals that sits up front and center. So for all liberals, this is their most important value, and all these other concerns and values kind of cascade down and stem from that. The one thing that all liberals have in common at the core of their beliefs is the belief in the necessity of freedom. That's not freedom for a community to do what they want, and it's not freedom for a country to do what they want. It's freedom specifically understood at the level of the individual. And then you might say, how much freedom?
What would I define this as?
And liberals would respond, as much necessity of freedom. That's not freedom for a community to do what they want, and it's not freedom for a country to do what they want. It's freedom specifically understood at the level of the individual. And then you might say, how much freedom? And liberals would respond, as much freedom as possible. Liberals do believe that we need to constrain freedom in some ways, but it's mostly for the purpose of maximizing freedom. They believe that if we constrain certain malicious uses of freedom, for the rest of society, more freedom is gained, and therefore overall it's something that we should do. So for example, we need to make it illegal to physically hurt other people, and we need to make it illegal to take freedom from someone else. Liberals don't believe that we should protect people from mental harm, because mental harm is too abstract of a concept and too open to abuse, and also just inevitable in a society where people...
This is so me. I don't give a fuck about words. I don't give a fuck about words or feelings. Fuck everything. Fuck all of it. Words, you can't quantify. You can't contextualize. You can't feel a word.
People can think for themselves. So liberals, at the core of their beliefs, believe in the necessity of the freedom of the individual. And they try to figure out the necessary compromises needed to secure it and make the most of it. And those freedoms include the right to think for yourself, speak for yourself, and generally pursue your own interests in your own life as you see fit. So here's John Stuart Mill giving his definition of it, who in turn is paraphrasing Adam Smith. Liberals...
Wait.
So here...
The only freedom which deserves the name is that of pursuing our own good in our own way, so long as we do not attempt to deprive others of theirs or impede their efforts to obtain it. True. The only freedom freedom to pursue your own good in your own way. That's so stupid. Freedom to follow your dreams. To do what your heart desires. So long as it is not impeding someone else from doing what their heart desires. I don't even believe that with a full... I want that with a caveat. For me, not for like liberalism. My caveat would be freedom to do what your heart desires so long as it is not impeding someone else from doing what their heart desires. I feel like that needs a qualifier.
Here's John Stuart Mill giving his definition of it, who in turn is paraphrasing Adam Smith. Liberals basically imagine the ideal society being like a sandbox that has rules and regulations that everyone needs to follow, like to not hurt anyone. And those are like the borders of the sandbox that need to be very carefully considered and constructed. But once those are set up and people respect them, then people can live within that society doing pretty much whatever they want. So that may sound controlling based on the way that I described that, but they were arguing for a radical amount of freedom at the time, especially compared to their competitors, who may have wanted to interfere more in the thoughts and behavior of others. And in a lot of ways, I think it's still a radical idea now. Classical liberals were in favor of capitalism. They saw it as a humane way for people to provide for themselves and pursue their goals and fulfill natural drives for conflict and competition in a nonviolent way. So they saw conflict as inevitable, and they saw capitalism as a safe and even productive way to channel it. They wanted the state to not intervene in the economy or individuals' capitalistic pursuits, because they thought that the more the state intervened, the more the state would grow in power, and inevitably the state would become tyrannical and overly coercive in the affairs of individual people. So they had a hands-off position with the state, which in their terminology is laissez-faire. As is the case with so many things in liberalism, it's controversial how much classical liberals actually practiced being laissez-faire, but many of them did advocate for it. And that distinguishes them from other types of liberals, because going forward in history, it would be rare for a liberal to go back and even advocate for it. If we were going to add another word to liberalism, it should be the word equality. And things get a little weird here, especially for the classical liberals, because they weren't totally consistent with it. But at least in theory, liberals believe that any freedom we're going to back by law needs to be equally distributed to everyone in society. So it's not good if, say, rich people have one set of rights and poor people have another set. Any freedom that we're going to guarantee needs to be equally distributed to everybody. An important thing to understand is that you can't infinitely support the principle of freedom while also infinitely supporting the principle of equality, because they often come into conflict with each other, and then you have to figure out some sort of compromise between the two. So for example, if you take the principle of equality to mean that there should be equal outcomes everywhere, meaning all people working the same type of job should make the same amount of money, or maybe you think all types of people should be equally represented in every type of job, liberals would say that the amount of interference it would take in people's lives to make those equal outcomes happen is tyrannical. So it would cost too much freedom and it's just not viable. But if you take the principle of equality to mean equality of opportunity, liberals are generally for that. But then even there's usually a cutoff point. So for example, let's consider the problem of parents wanting to provide for their kids. It's natural for parents to want to give their kids a leg up in life, whether it's hooking them up with a good job, maybe sending them to a good school, maybe giving them a bunch of money, whatever. In a perfectly free society, parents should be able to do as much of that as they want, because it's their freedom to provide for their kids however they see fit. But then if their parents are propping their kids up to positions of power or giving their kids, millions of dollars, while other kids don't have that, then that's also compromising equality. So then a liberal would probably look at that and say, we need to find a healthy compromise here. We don't want to not allow this parent to provide for their kid, because that's taking too much freedom from the parent. So let's find some sort of targeted policy here. Maybe when the parent wants to give an inheritance to the kid, we'll tax that inheritance, and then we'll take that money and we'll put it towards free education.
anyone's not a liberal. Like, it's just so pragmatic. It just makes so much sense. Like, duh.
Healthy compromise here. We don't want to not allow this parent to provide for their kid because that's taking too much freedom from the parent. So they agreed not only for that, but then even there's usually a cutoff to mean no. So it would cost community. Let's consider the problem of parents wanting to provide for their kids. It's natural for parents to want to give their kids a leg up in life, whether it's hooking them up with a good job, maybe sending them to a good school, maybe giving them a bunch of money, whatever. In a perfectly free society, parents should be able to do as much of that as they want because it's their freedom to provide for their kids however they see fit. But then if their parents are propping their kids up to positions of power or giving their kids, millions of dollars, while other kids don't have that, then that's also compromising equality. So then a liberal would probably look at that and say, we need to find a healthy compromise here. We don't want to not allow this parent to provide for their kid because that's taking too much freedom from the parent. So let's find some sort of targeted policy here. Maybe when the parent wants to give an inheritance to the kid, we'll tax that inheritance. And then we'll take that money and we'll put it towards free education, therefore raising equality of opportunity in the rest of society. So that's just a way of saying you can't have a society that has full amounts of both. You can't have a perfectly free society and also a perfectly equal society. And liberals try to find this sort of healthy balance between the two. So those were principles that were established at the time that were true of classical liberals and are still generally true of liberals now. In other ways, classical liberals were more distinct. So for example, they were pretty elitist. They didn't trust regular, uneducated people and wanted to keep voting to being a privilege. So they thought in order to earn the right to vote, you needed to get an education and also own property. So they did advocate that we should expand education to more people, but they thought until more people received an education, voting should be a privilege. While we're talking about stuff that doesn't age well, classical liberals saw liberalism as a civilizing force in the world. So they thought that societies that
Maybe I'm too classical of a liberal because I agree with that.
and are still generally true too. So those were principles that were established at the time that were true of classical liberals and are still generally true of liberals now. In other ways, classical liberals were more distinct. So for example, they were pretty elitist. They didn't trust regular, uneducated people and wanted to keep voting to being a privilege. So they thought in order to earn the right to vote, you needed to get an education and also own property. So they did advocate that we should expand education to more people, but they thought until more people received an education, voting should be a privilege. While we're talking about stuff that doesn't age well, classical liberals saw liberalism as a civilizing force in the world. So they thought that societies that had liberalism were civilized, and societies that didn't have liberalism were uncivilized, which they called
Exclusively allowed landowners, educated landowners. Okay, they also saw illiberal. No, they didn't even have to be liberal. Saw non-liberal societies as uncivilized. I mean, I get it. If you're literally going through all of this work to like find out what rules exactly work for your system in place, and then you see this other country that's just like, oh, I'm the king, I'm gonna do whatever I want. Like, yeah, you seem a little barbaric. I get that.
Called barbarous. And they thought they had sort of an obligation to spread liberalism around the world. So that sounds pretty bad.
I don't get that. That like completely defined that. That's like the literal opposite of liberalism. Like, oh, okay, so now you're just gonna force me to do what you fucking want me to do? Hello, what happened to freedom?
But to be fair, you have to realize that they're talking about giving civil rights and education to people around the world that don't have it, and would presumably want it. At least a lot of them would. But they thought that they had to do it imperialistically, which meant that they would basically have to take the place over and educate and civilize the people in that country. And then once those people are deemed able to handle running their own country, they would theoretically give them their country back. If you're wondering where this is coming from, these are generalizations, and classical liberalism basically evolved across the 1800s into that generalization. So different thinkers would contribute different pieces to it, but they themselves typically wouldn't capture the whole. So Tocqueville, for example, talked about the dangers of concentrated power, both in government and in groups of people. And he also talked about the virtues of a society where people looked at each other and roughly saw each other as equal. But if you only read Tocqueville, then you probably won't get a strong sense of what liberalism is or classical liberalism, because his writing just provides pieces of it. So if you're looking for a definitive take on classical liberalism in America, people usually point to John Stuart Mill, who spent his career trying to tie all these liberal ideas together, with On Liberty being his landmark book. So when people talk about classical liberalism, including me, they tend to average together the different ideas that these classical liberals had, while throwing out the ones that didn't stick. and if anything, point to John Stuart Mill as the biggest authority on the subject. By the late 1800s, liberal values in a loose interpretation had spread across the broad American public, and liberals themselves loosened up their own position that voting should be an earned privilege, and liberals started to endorse extending voting in a classless way. So as voting rights spread, and as liberal values spread, that introduced a new term, which brings me to the next section, which is called
liberal democracy. Yay! That's how libertarians feel. They feel that perspective when it's applied to their nation, and you agree with the sentiment they share to an extent when you say, how is everyone not a liberal? Which I agree. Yeah, but I mean, like, everyone in America. Like, I'm not gonna go to, like, other nations with, like, different cultures and, like, different upbringings and different societal norms and be like, yo, you guys are fucking uncivilized as fuck because you don't like liberals. Like, it's random.
Liberal democracy, as you might guess, is a system.
But, like, how is everyone in America not a liberal? That doesn't... And that literally used to... When did it... Who was the first non-liberal Republican? I think this is why people associate conservative with conservative and liberal as, like, counters, because the first non-liberal Republican was a conservative one. Nixon, the last liberal Republican. And then who came after Nixon? In terms of Republicans. Nixon! See, people don't even know what the fuck liberal means in these... Oh my god, whatever. By today's standards, he was a liberal. The last liberal Republican. I get the sentiment, but I'm saying that they view that way when you infringement on their individuality, on their commitment, on their community's individuality. I'm confused. Like, libertarians are saying that towards America? Towards ourselves? I think we've just come full circle almost 100 years after the Great Depression. The same mistakes are being repeated from that era nowadays despite our recorded history. I don't think so. Do you know how bad the Progressive era was? Do you know how actually, like, rancid and, like, evil the things that were happening during the Progressive era were? This is like some of the most like evil, like this was when journalism existed, was with the muckrakers. Like literal start of American journalism was because of all of the fucked up shit that was going on between the corrupt billionaires during the Progressive era, because there were like you had what is it, Jacob Riis, Into the Jungle. This was an insanely bad time. How the Other Half Lives. This was like a deep dive into like tenement houses and like the types of living conditions that people were living in. Like, people had insane hygiene issues at this point in history. It was insanely, like, there was just so much shit. This was one, what's it called? This lady had another. This was about the Rockefeller Company and the Standard Oil and talking about like all of the robber barons, right? And then we also had Upton Sinclair. Is this one The Jungle? Yeah, The Jungle, talking about like the FDA and like all of the like rancid shit that was happening in like the meat industry. Like, we had people talking about these things and writing about these things and exposing these things before we had the major legislative FDR going in there and just absolutely taking over the executive and expanding it and saying like we had the public uprise before we had the legislative change. We had all of these sentiments and we had all of these like researchers and all of these things going on. I don't think that we have any of this going on right now in capitalism. Like there's no big expose. There's no like massive, like we could have had it with the United CEO thing if everyone didn't fucking go crazy and just start killing people. Like maybe there could have been this huge like expose that came out in the Times, just got like a Pulitzer talking about like all the fucked up shit with the AI that got done, and maybe we could have seen actual reform change on it. Instead, you just killed someone, everyone got upset about it, everyone got controversialized it, and nothing even really changed other than like that one anesthesia thing that was already set to change before. When the History Channel premiered their Robber Baron series about 6 to 7 years ago, I think it disturbed me then how many people thought, wait, no, robber barons were good. This is like, hang on, this is history. Robber barons were objectively like good to society because they were also captains of industry and philanthropists. That was the whole debate between them, was between whether they were robber barons or captains of industry. These people were doing insane innovation in terms of like the in terms of like oil and like the different like the steel companies and stuff. Like these were insane innovations that were getting done. The American Fur Company, Wall Street, like the stocks, like yeah, we don't like these now, but at the time, like the Transcontinental Railroad, that was massive, that was huge, and it was like at the time, I could 100% see people like in the moment, right? The same way that you see MAGA now, where it's like, well, Elon Musk is like so smart, he's doing all of these rockets and he's going off into space and stuff, and he's doing all of these things, like, I think he gets to be a little bit of a bitch and like take advantage. I don't agree with that, but like I could see people like, oh yeah, like this guy literally made the fucking Transcontinental Railroad, like he can be rich, he can fuck around and be rich if he literally made the Transcontinental Railroad, right? The issue was that these people were like, sorry, I don't know what exactly like the culture was at this point, but it started getting like frowned upon to be so greedy in your life that you were willing to die with all this money. Like it became a big, when after all of these like robber barons and stuff, like they had their empires and they had all of their children taken care of, right? They started getting like shamed in society, and I don't know, like the sentiments were like, I think it was like Rockefeller like disowned half of his kids because he didn't want them to be rich. Which robber baron disowned his kids? Robber baron disowning kids. Fuck. Which robber baron was famous for disowning his kids? Whatever. So they basically, like the whole idea, the whole thing with this, the whole debate that you have in APUSH is that, you know, was it an overall net positive or negative to society? Because after these people made their wealth, Andrew Carnegie had his Gospel of Wealth. Okay, so maybe it was Carnegie was the one that I'm thinking of. Oh, this guy. Here we go. The robber baron most famous for excluding his children from his will was Wellington Burt, a wealthy lumber of the Gilded Age, he left behind an unusual will and stipulated that the bulk of his fortune would not be distributed until 21 years after the death of his last surviving grandchild. like these people were so strange with their money. So strange, so weird. Okay. Andrew Carnegie wrote this Gospel of Wealth. I remember what this was called. Basically saying that we shouldn't be like holding, we shouldn't be holding all of our money. This was what caused everyone to have, this is what I meant when I said I don't know what the culture was going on at that time. This was the culture. The problem of our age is the proper administration of wealth. It goes on and on and on and basically shames every rich person for using their wealth in a selfish way and for just like promoting their own children and for like doing that, right? Thus is the problem of rich and poor to be solved. The laws of accumulation will be left free. The laws of distribution free. Individualism will continue, but the millionaire will be but a trustee for the poor, entrusted for a season with a great part of the increased wealth of the community, but administering it for the community far better than it could or would have done for itself. The best minds will thus have reached a stage in the development of the race which it is clearly seen that there is no mode of disposing of surplus wealth credible to thoughtful and earnest men into whose hands it flows, save by using it year by year for the general good. This day already dawns, but a little while, and although, without incurring the pity of their fellows, men may die sharers in great business enterprises, from which their capital cannot be, or has not been, withdrawn, and is left chiefly a death for public uses. Yet the man who dies leaving behind many millions of available wealth, which was his to administer during his life, will pass away unwept, unhonored, and unsung, no matter to what he uses, he leaves the dross which he cannot take with him. Of such as these, the public verdict will then be, the man who dies rich thus dies disgraced. This is the sentiment that like killed all of the robber barons. Not actually, but this is how we got Carnegie Hall. This is how we got Rockefeller Center. This is how we got all of these philanthropical museums that got like created because of all of these rich people that got shamed into giving up all of their money before they died. Quite literally got shamed into giving up their money before they died. I also don't know what specifically all of the like estate laws or like inheritance laws would have been at this point in history, right? But we just upped the new estate tax to $15 million. Like the sentiment that of Andrew Carnegie, the sentiment of this Wellington Burt not wanting to give away his money to his children, directly contradicting to us more recently allowing you to pass on $15 million to your child before inflation, for them to get that tax-free after inflation? Oh my goodness gracious. Oh my goodness gracious. Yeah. How did I even get on this kick anyways? What did I start talking about with robber barons? Was that because of a chatter? Oh yeah, that was in response to Josh. I have MAGA. What views do liberal Republicans even hold politically wise? Liberal is not like pro-choice or like anti-gun or like pro UBI or anything like that. Like liberal is like the system of government in which we function that allows for freedom of speech, for freedom of press, for freedom of the judiciary, for the equal and separate balance of powers, right? Like that's what liberal used to mean when we had liberal Republicans. That was what constituted like liberal. right? Nothing of statistical significance in a positive sense is happening in the same way that it always has for my generation. Interesting. I don't know what that means. Yeah, have you never played RDR2? No. Whoa. Robber barons weren't good. The issue is that they were given too much power due to the systems. And while it is true that innovation happened, that doesn't excuse their existence. Do you understand how I'm sorry. Do you understand how brain dead that is? Like, this guy, did you miss the part where I said he literally made the Transcontinental Railroad? Like, the Transcontinental Railroad, that's a big fucking thing to make, for one yeah, he got a lot of power from it, because he made the literal, like, expansion mechanism in which we were able to make the fucking country. Yeah, like, that wouldn't have happened if we didn't have rich people in power. That wouldn't have happened if we had a state government funded railroad system. It wouldn't have happened that fast. It wouldn't have happened that efficiently. You want to talk about the Transcontinental Railroad too? It was, like, super unethical with the amount of, like, Chinese, like, slave laborers that they basically did for the Transcontinental Railroad. Okay, there's a lot of fucked up shit to happen with it. But, like, to say all of that outweighs the fucking railroad? The railroad! That's, like, oh my god. I'm sorry. This is, like, this is so bad. Like, that's, sorry. It's not like, while it is true that innovation happened, like, that was, like, groundbreaking, earth-shattering, like, world-altering innovation. 100,000%, like, beneficial to... And with, like, Carnegie with oil and like, the steel, I feel like it's really incredible and amazing the amount of, like, innovation that was required to do that. The Roman Empire had great innovations too, like aqueducts, which weren't replicated until the 1860s. But no one suggests going back to an imperial system just because they were successful. Because the aqueducts don't have anything to do with the type of government that was, like, functioning in Rome. And also, wait... Like, I don't think that this is even a good counterfactual, but, like, if I am playing into the counterfactual here, the aqueducts don't have anything to do, like, it's not because they're living in an imperialist society that they were able to do aqueducts. Like, they were able to have aqueducts and canals were, like, a completely separate innovation. Like, the amount of capital and the amount of, like human human capital, like labor, like resources that were afforded to these robber barons is, like, solely because they were rich and powerful and they had money. Like, they solely would not have had those things if they were not rich and powerful and had money. And that's a nuanced thing to happen, but, like, fuck, life is hard. Like, she's not saying that individuals are good, but the innovation that their categories brought and what affords society overall. Yes. The innovations themselves are... Hang on. The innovations themselves are indicative of how bad the systems were, since they were used for consolidating power and not benefiting a majority of people. But they can... But... I'm sorry, okay. The innovations themselves, the Transcontinental Railroad, our steel industry, our oil industry, our lumber industry, those innovations themselves are indicative of how bad a system that allows for power and capital to be given to innovators to create these things that your Transcontinental Railroad that's transporting people, your steel industry that is making factories for people, your lumber that is building things for people, like, what? Oh my god, I'm being trolled. Once case against capitalism, yeah, this is the case against capitalism. Actually, is just like fucking evil people. That's the case against capitalism. So, people are evil, and there are evil people that are evil, and they're gonna start. There's literally the richest man in the world that is taking money away that could save the poorest children. Like, that's fucking evil. That's definitely blackpilling to capitalism. Thing is, we haven't had proper reform to our economic systems like we've had with politics. Things like democracy weren't applied to economics, so we had people like what, like capitalism, like socialism, like communism. Do you realize those are like economic schools of thought, and they tried, like Marxist-Leninism, like they were tried. What reform are you anticipated to exist when the system we have boosted us to the world superpower that we are? True. Yeah, like, I don't... like, do you know how new America is in comparison to, like, all of the other, like, what is the I don't know what the G7 is, I'm sorry. Okay. I was right. Countries, just for funsies, right? Canada was founded 1931. Okay, after us. They also have a worse economy than us. They're not as productive as us. Why are they not as productive as us? Who knows? France was found in Jesus Christ. This is current. Okay, like what? 1792. Okay. French Revolution. We have Germany. Also. What? Why does Germany not give me a found date? Hello? 1815. Like, for how long we've been Italy from 15th, 16th, for how long we've been doing shit around the world, right? America managed to fucking take over and just demolish everyone, like, insanely fast for how long we had been trying shit around the world, like, in other places, right? Like, we had all of these other, like, economic systems in other places. I don't know that much about them, but, like, for the United States to just come in 1776 and just start, like, yeah, we didn't even take over in 1776. It wasn't even until, like, what, like the World War? Like, World War I, even. Like, we basically became a global superpower in, like, 10 years. Maybe. Like, just because of our... We're very impressive. Insanely impressive. The Romans also had amazing infrastructure, but their lack of reforms led to their downfall. Okay. Actually, I heard the declining birth rate is what led to the Roman Empire decline. I hate how bad Amtrak is. It literally could be better, but is it? Okay. This is equivalent to wanting to condemn the founding fathers for slavery while ignoring what's been afforded to us. Very true. Two companies created the transcontinental... Yes, I knew this! And then they met in the middle. And I think that there was, like, a story where they actually didn't meet in the middle and they ended up, like, making extra railroad. Or maybe that's, like, a funny, I feel like one of them was, like, the Dutch East India Company. I feel like I'm making that up, but I feel like I know that the Dutch East India Company exists. Did this have any relation to the Transcontinental Railroad? Or am I making this up just from my A-push brain? No direct connection. I'm just mixing them up in my A-push brain. Didn't exist at the time. Railroads began to be constructed and oh yeah. How insane is it that you're, hang on, how insane Jesus Christ, how insane is it that you're even able to say you hate rather than how got him. Yeah, freedom of speech. It feels like you guys are equating a system to success and not from the individuals. It's the individuals outside of people like billionaires that make things happen. It feels like you guys are equating a system to success and I'm not equating the system. I'm not saying that like we need to go back to exactly the same system that we had in the Transcontinental Railroad and in the construction of that, and that's how we get back to a good society. I'm countering your initial claim, which was that it is not worth, like, what did you say, the innovation is not worth it? The issue is they were given too much power due to systems, and while it is true that innovation happened, that doesn't excuse their existence. You're basically saying that they shouldn't have, like, robber barons weren't good, they shouldn't have existed, and just because the innovation happened due to the systems, it doesn't justify their existence. I'm countering that by saying it does, because the innovations were good, and because it was worth it. I'm not suggesting that we go back to that system. I'm not making a claim, I'm just countering yours. Amtrak comes from a whole different dimension. Yeah, that's not what the Transcontinental Railroad is. That's not the Amtrak. I'm not saying it didn't help us become better, but the side effect was that children were put in... I'm really sorry. You get a timeout. I'm sorry. I've been trying not to because you're chill, but, like, I'm so, like, that was so stupid. Children in labor. Oh no, children laborers! The children laborers in the 1900s. Oh my god, the children laborers. Fuck, I forgot we can't. Actually, the children laborers, the child laborers. Oh my god. Like, did you even think about this? I'm sorry. No, I'm gonna support child laborers. I'm actually a huge advocate of child laborers. I love child laborers, and I think that child labor was, like, a really good thing, and I'm advocating for all of the capitalistic, the evil capitalistic intentions of child laborers. Like, for you to say that the side effect of the Transcontinental Railroad was child labor. Yeah, and the side effect of my chemotherapy is, like, my hair falling out. Oh no, oh my god, the baldness of it all, like, Jesus. Sorry, I feel like you've been trolling me this whole time, and I just...
Society that's both liberal and democratic. So it has either widespread voting rights or universal voting rights. And it's capitalistic, even if it's some sort of moderated version of capitalism. And it also has civil rights backed by law for everyone in that society. Basically, everything about liberal democracy is controversial. Not everyone agrees even when liberal democracy started in America. Some people say it always was, but most people put it somewhere around the beginning of the 20th century. But it depends what voting rights bill you're looking at that should mark the beginning of it. And some people say that other values come along with it, but all of that's controversial. So some people say that a loose understanding of liberal values is now the default value system of America. Like individualism, this idea that we should look around and see the country as made up of atomized individuals and not in terms of collectives and competing collective interests. Other people argue that we now broadly aspire to be tolerant and mutually respectful, because those are qualities that are ideal to have in a society based on the freedom of the individual. But again, that's all controversial. Either way, the creation of the concept.
Listen, if you want to hop on voice call and on the voice channel, like go into the waiting room and I'll drag you in if you want to explain like this thought more. But I genuinely tried to engage for so long, and it really just sounds like you're complaining about, oh, but bad things happen, but what about the bad things, but what about the bad things, but bad things happen, obviously fucking bad things happen all the time. Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Of liberal democracy introduced a new meaning for the word liberal, which in this context means someone that supports liberal democracy, meaning that you're for capitalism.
LOL, so childish to block someone of a disagreement. I purposely did it on screen so that you could see that I put him in a 5-minute timeout after I spent literally 15 minutes engaging. I'm not blocking someone because of a disagreement. I put him in timeout because it felt like he was not acknowledging anything that I was saying and just kept on repeating the same, but bad things happen, but what about the bad things, but what about the bad things?
And meaning that you're for a multi-party democracy, because it can't be a single-party democracy because that's not much of one, and you're for state-backed rights for all citizens. So in this context, most Americans are probably liberal, and certainly all American presidents. So you could also use it to compare different government systems around the world. So you could say, after World War II, Germany was split into two parts. You had the liberal West and the communist East. This also introduced a new type of liberal thinker that especially concerned themselves with the health and relative standing of liberal democracy around the world. So that would be like Karl Popper, or more recently, Francis Fukuyama. And for this video, beyond pointing out those new terms, that's it for liberal democracy. Short section. Once liberal democracy was more or less established, and once America started industrializing as a country, modern liberals were the next group of liberals who tried to make liberalism work in those conditions. One problem is that people liked to proclaim America as the land of the free and equal, but it was just too obviously, in too many ways, not free and equal. And it was being pointed out both in America and abroad as a point of hypocrisy. So one type of modern liberal was a rights-based liberal that basically worked to fix that and worked to extend equal rights to everyone in the country. So that included extending voting rights to everybody and extending civil rights to minorities. Another type of modern liberal focused more on the economy and on quality of life concerns like unemployment or equality of opportunity. And I think at times it can be hard to understand why they're still considered liberals. So I think to wrap your head around where they were coming from, it helps to consider a scenario like this. If you imagine someone that doesn't have somewhere to live, so they're, say, on a street corner somewhere, and they don't have much of an education, and they don't really have a way to afford more, and say they're also discriminated against, say in the job market, and say it's because of their skin color. Their options in their life are going to be windowed down so much that if you go up to that person and say that they have rights guaranteeing their freedom, it kind of makes a mockery out of the concept. So you could give that person food and shelter, but they're still not very free. And then on top of that, if the economy crashes and unemployment skyrockets, that person's going to have even fewer options. So these types of concerns were already in the mix for classical liberals, especially towards the end of the classical liberal period. But it was much more of a thing for modern liberals. And they generally looked to the government and saw the government as a solution to these problems. There was another problem too. As America industrialized, corporations became bigger and more powerful. And liberals started to argue that we needed a bigger, more powerful government to regulate these corporations and maybe even break them up. Some liberals did argue back that the problem mostly takes care of itself. They said that as corporations become bigger, they sort of become like ocean liners that are unwieldy and sluggish to accommodate change. And just naturally, smaller corporations that are sort of sleeker will just overtake them over time. But that was a minority opinion. And especially in the beginning of the 20th century, the prevailing wisdom among liberals was that we needed a bigger government to deal with the challenges of the modern world. So the relationship between liberals and the government was changing. And basically, no one was laissez-faire anymore. But opinions on what exactly that relationship should look like were split into a spectrum of opinion between left and right. Liberals on the left tended to argue that the government should intervene more. It could mean that they took a more active role stabilizing the economy, or it could mean that they took more of an active role trying to make quality of life improvements for the worst off, meaning that they overall took a more welfarist position. Then you also had the liberal right. Their general position is that a rising tide lifts all boats. They thought that less intervention meant more freedom, which meant more economic activity, which meant more prosperity, which overall, in the long run, they
I'm actually still, like, heated. I actually haven't heard a single word that this guy just said because I just keep on thinking, like, like, genuinely, I don't know how to deconstruct this, like, this like, line of like, seeing the world. I don't know how to describe it also other than, like, naive. But that also seems, like, really unfair of me to just, like, call everyone that, like, also I'm a child, like, who the fuck am I to call people naive? But it seems, like, very, like, just naive to, like, no bad things should happen ever, and any bad things that happen are always evil, and any bad things that happen always need to be, like, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I hear this a lot with, like, all of the lefties. That's it. Like, even with Republicans, I'll use Republicans as an example because it's so much easier to make fun of them, right? I feel bad. So, like, when a Republican is like, oh, all of the immigrants are, like, taking all of the welfare from us, and, like, all of the immigrants are being evil, and they're all taking welfare, and they're all, like, they're all claiming fake asylum claims, and they're all, like, maliciously, like fucking up the country, right? You have the ability, I know you all do, to look at that and say, you know, objectively speaking, it's probably true that there probably are immigrants that are taking advantage. But objectively speaking, it probably is true that there's probably a lot more people that aren't. And there's probably a lot more people that are benefiting society. And there's probably a lot more, like, overall net positive as a result from immigrants, right? I feel like we all intuitively know that, because hopefully everyone here doesn't hate immigrants. But then when it comes to, like, issues that are not as clear cut of, like, hating brown people, then all of that, like, deductive, like, okay, well, we can acknowledge that this happens in some cases and not in all cases, and the cases that it doesn't happen in and it does happen in are, like, two different things. Like, all of that goes out the window because then it's just like, whoever's evil is evil, and whoever's evil is just evil and needs to get gotten rid of, and it's just evil. It's just all evil, and everyone's just always evil. And it's just the evil capitalist billionaires, it's the evil capitalist lefties, it's the evil socialist lefties, it's the evil capitalist billionaires, it's the evil fucking bigoted MAGA. Everyone's just always evil, and there's never anything other than just evil. Okay. I don't know how to deal with that. It just really... No, is this frozen? No, it's not. Is it frozen?
Said would help everyone.
No. I was about to say, did the Mac not make it? No, she's doing so well. She's only at 16 gigabytes. It's so light. I was almost gonna get the 16 gigabyte one too. I thought that 24 might have been a bit much, but I've been seeing this. This hasn't gone past 20, but I saw it go, like, around 18. So I think 24 was solid. Issues are more complex and have deep connections and nuances. It's why there's whole graduate courses that go through some of these topics. I wish that more people knew that. Like, I'm gonna start saying this more. I say that a lot, and then I never start saying it. But, like, it hurts me that I'm not able to know everything that there is to know in the world because there's so much to know. And there's, like, people that spend their entire life learning one thing, and they still don't even know everything about that one thing, and that's so disheartening. But, like, everyone just needs to know that and, like, acknowledge that. Like, you realize you could spend your entire life, like, studying one thing and still not know everything that there is to know about it. You have to realize that. You have to know that. You have to be aware of that. And a lot of people are so stupid that they're just like, well, I took a course on this and so I'm a pro. You think that you oh my god, yeah, it's crazy. Society wants to distill things into sound bites, and so society is saying superficial. Yeah, that's true. It's very circular. Yeah, where society is saying superficial and sound bites become reality. Very true. It's a sign of intelligence. The smarter you are, the more you know you don't know. Yeah. True. I say that I'm retarded all the time. Alright, I'm gonna run to the restroom.
In a means ends related way, I think I'm going to try to lure her to my side and get my vote. It's because I honestly enjoy her as a person, and she's very smart and she's very funny, and I enjoy spending time with her. And I think when you have relationships with people and when you spend time with people, you know, it's easy to see them as people and not just embodiments of ideas that you disagree with.
When you talk about Justice Kagan being very funny, she was a participant in this conversation in the past, and she is hilarious.
She is hilarious.
And your Justice Scalia was certainly hilarious. Who's the funniest member of the Supreme Court right now?
So this is kind of like when someone asks me, like, who is your favorite child? And this is being recorded, so whatever I say. I have many funny colleagues.
Okay, very diplomatic. Let me turn to a more serious question. The court has been criticized for not having a code of conduct applying to Supreme Court justices, and Chief Justice Roberts has been quoted as saying the court is working on it, and various justices have made comments that there's not yet a consensus about such a code of conduct. The Senate has now passed a code of conduct applicable to justices. Let me ask you, do you favor a code of conduct for Supreme Court justices, and what benefits do you see that would provide?
I think it would be a good idea for us to do it, particularly so that we can communicate to the public exactly what it is that we're doing in a clearer way than perhaps we have been able to do so far. I will say this, there is no lack of consensus among the justices. There's unanimity among all nine justices that we should and do hold ourselves to the highest standards, highest ethical standards possible. So, I mean, I think what we are thinking about, you know, in thinking about what I think about in a code of conduct, is how best to express what it is that we are already doing. You know, and we already abide by the statutes. There are a number of statutes that govern all judges, including justices. We all file our financial disclosure forms, for example, or like gift regulations. Those are statutory requirements. And then I personally, and this is true of my colleagues as well, still follow the same rules that applied to me when I was a Court of Appeals judge, the canons of conduct. There are some differences that apply to the court just by virtue of its position in the hierarchy of the judiciary. And I think, you know, our day job is, you know, reading statutes and seeing if Congress anticipated everything or communicated everything clearly. And so, you know, I think we want to do a good job at that. So.
Do you think it will take much longer to come to an agreement about what a code might be, or what do you foresee looking ahead?
Well, let's see. I think that's something that I can't really speak for the court about or make any sort of guess about that. I would just say that one thing I would want all of you all to know is that all 9 justices are very committed to the highest standards of ethical conduct. All 9 justices, I mean, and we're in agreement about what to do, and that we want to continue to follow the highest ethical standards. So any disagreement is nothing to do with either of those principles.
Well, let me turn to another hot button issue.
Oh, well, thank you, Professor Stein.
We can't all be fun and games. The court has been criticized for overturning long-standing precedent in some major decisions in the past 2 terms. And without getting into the issues in those cases, could you comment on the weight you think should be given or that you give to long-standing precedent? How do you weigh that in deciding how to decide a case?
Sure. Well, I think before I answer the latter part, I do want to just quibble with your premise, because the court, actually the Roberts Court, including my time on it, is at a low. When you look at historically how many precedents are overruled a term, we're at about 1, and historically it's at about more 2 or 3. And in the last 2 terms, So there was Dobbs, and I think a lot of things probably get filtered through that lens, as it seems like, the court has overturned a lot of precedents. But the Library of Congress does a tracker to show how many, there's a table showing how many precedents that the court has overruled, and it's only been 2, a case Edwards versus Vinoy, which partially overruled Teague versus Lane, and Dobbs. So I don't think it's empirically true to say that we've overturned a lot of precedent, but we have overturned precedent, and every court does.
I need to go to this website right now and see what the fucking number is at now. They keep a chart. They keep a tally. They just have that shit. Did they take it down yet in this administration?
So I don't think it's empirically true to say that we've overturned a lot of precedent, but we have overturned precedent. And first 2 terms, and his look at historically how many precedent court, including my premise, because the court, actually the Roberts court, including my time on it, is at a low. When you look at historically how many precedents are overruled a term, we're at about 1, and historically it's at about more 2 or 3. And in the last 2 terms, so there was a lot of precedents, but the Library of Congress does
the Library of Congress
tracker to show how many, there's a table showing how many precedents that the court has.
There's a table showing how many precedents are overturned. Library of Congress, precedent. How do you spell precedent? Precedent? Overturning. Count? Table. That was so goated. What? How did I just do that? Wait, how did I just do that? How do I do it again? Was that like an arc thing that I never... Wait. What else can I look up? Ah! Did it do this one? That's insane. Oh my god! Wait, I'm so sorry. I'm actually going to bust a nut right now. Does everyone understand how insanely goated this is? So I'm so used to Googling. I'm so used to just like, hey, Google. And then going through here, and then once I'm on here, then I'll look through and I'll just like, okay, I'll look at this one, and then I have to like middle tap it, like with the scroll button to open it in a new tab, right? Or I'll like command open, right? What this just did was I looked up code of conduct and it opened all of the tabs that come up on a search result when you look up code of conduct. Like, there's the Wikipedia one, there's the Ethosphere one, there's the this triangle one. Like, oh my gosh. And it just opened all of them. That's just like so insanely goated. Like, that's just like insane. That's beautiful. Wow. I love that so much. So like when I looked up the Supreme Court like overturned table, right? It opened this one, it opened this one, it opened this one, it opened this one. Like, this is so goated. Wow. Why would you want to do that? What do you mean? Why would I not want to do that? That just saved me like a middle step of having to go to the Google. Like, I'll never see the Google homepage again. I'll never need to. right? Like I can just look at them in the sidebar over here, which I don't know why these are supposed to be like AI names for like readability, like these title names, and I'm sure that they are, but they're still too long for my liking. But I like that it includes all of like the sources, so I can just like hover over, and I can rename them if I wanted to. Like this I could make this like, I do this for videos where I'll make it like whatever. I'll like rename it like whatever source I need, so I remember. I highly suggest Arc browser to everyone. I like recommend it so heavily. Table of Supreme Court decisions overruled by subsequent decisions. No. Okay, wait, I want to see the year of the overruling decision. Is this Chevron case? Wait, that's the last one that they didn't overturn any more recent ones? So it's just the, is this the only 3? McConnell versus the, oh, this is the Citizens United. I need to do a deep dive on Citizens United at some point later in the day. Yeah, this is crazy. I thought it would have been more. Maybe we feel it's more because of the unprecedented rulings themselves. Yeah, I think that, like, because I'm trying to think with the presidential immunity clause, right? They didn't need to rule on that. Like the question posed to them had literally nothing to do with presidential immunity. They just like put that in there out of nowhere, right? Maybe that's why, like, that's their version of like, it doesn't get technically like written as a fucking decision because it wasn't technically fucking presented to them. So it just gets included as like a little nugget, as a little side note. There's like shit like that. It's like crazy. It's never been defined before, so it's technically not an overruling. Like technicalities like that, like that's how the Trump administration operates. Because what do you mean that's not technically, yeah, it's not technically an overruling, but like it's overruling of like every precedent that we have that no man is above the law. Technically, yeah, that's crazy. Bam. Alright, doing my makeup for work. What's a fun reaction I can do? Morbidly obesity, is that, oh wait, did I even finish my Jubilee? Do I even want to finish this? Oh, the Kant lecture. Link it. Oh, let's watch Free Will Debate. I like debates.
I do that. Well, if I try and pay attention to the actual mechanism by which that's happening, in the
Oh, I love Alex O'Connor. Should just watch Alex O'Connor in my funsies.
Mind just kind of defining the terms. What do we mean by free will and determinism?
Sure. Yes.
Just in a few
I can
minutes.
try my best. And forgive me if I'm a bit sniffly. I'm a little under the weather, and I'm sorry for bringing a sort of viral infection into your school.
They're far enough away. Don't worry about it.
I'm not talking about my atheist materialism either. I'm sorry, everybody. Free will is a complicated subject. in many ways, but it's also incredibly simple. It's a bit like consciousness in the fact that it's simultaneously the most mysterious, mystifying thing in the world, the greatest mystery that scientists and philosophers have been battling about for centuries and more. But at the same time, the most obvious and straightforward thing in the world because you interact with the world through it. You know what it feels like to freely decide to come to a talk. Perhaps you don't because you're at school. I don't know if you've been forced to be here. But the position that you're sat in, maybe your legs crossed over another, you could choose at any moment to swap them over. And it feels like you have some agency over that. It feels like you're the author of that action, that if I rewound that clock, went back in time, you could have done something differently. And you could have done something differently based on your own decision-making, that you could have chosen to do that of your own accord. This is something like what free will is. It's a difficult thing to define precisely, but it's something like the ability to have acted differently if you were to rewind that clock. And the reason that's a troublesome concept for many people is that anything that happens is going to happen for some kind of reason. Now, some people might object that some things might happen for no reason. There might be random events in the universe. Some of the most clever of you might be thinking of quantum physics, where we're told that there's random things happening all the time. You hear this kind of language. One thing to note is that if something is random, then by definition, you're not in control of it. And if something is genuinely random, there's no determinate factor, then you can't be in control of it because it's random. If you had some control over it, it wouldn't be random. So there may be some randomness in the universe. But if some event is not random, what that means is that something has determined it to be the case. Something has made it so that this happened rather than that happened. If I flip a coin, it seems like that's random, and we often treat it like it's random, but technically speaking, it's not. If you could measure the exact force with which that coin was flipped into the air, its exact starting position, you knew the wind conditions, you knew every physical fact, you could predict with perfect accuracy which way it would land. Seems random, but it's not. So what determines whether it lands heads or tails? Well, things like that, things like the force you give to it, things like the wind speed. These things are determining factors into flipping that coin around. And my position is that the things that happen inside of your brain are similar to this. Any event that happens inside of your head, that is, the motivation to switch your legs over, or the decision to raise your hand, or to put it down again. These are mental events. It comes from your brain. Your brain tells you to do this, or your brain tells your arm to go up and down. And the question you have to ask of any event, including mental events, is it determined, or is it random? If it's random, if your brain just randomly does it, then you're definitely not in control of it, because it's random. If it's not random, then it's determined by something. There's something that made you raise your hand. Or maybe it's something else inside of your head. Maybe you raised your hand because you wanted to ask a question. So it's something inside of you. You wanted to ask a question. But then you've just pushed the problem back. And you ask of that mental event, you wanting to ask a question, that desire to ask a question, that itself is either determined or it's random. And again, if it's random, you're not in control of it. The desire just popped into your head.
Alex O'Connor is the only person that no amount of Adderall could help me pay attention to him. What? I feel like he's so easy to, like, watch. I feel like he explains things, like, so, like, simply and, like, cohesively. What? This guy is, like, half of my free will arguments come from him. Actually, no. He introduced me to, oh my god, I'm gonna forget his name. I'm gonna butcher his name. It's, like, Peter something. Fuck, I think he was, like, I literally just saw him here. Oh my god. I was so wrong. Robert Sapolsky, this guy. Yeah. This guy is crazy with the free will arguments. All of my free will arguments come from him and his books. Like, he's so good. He's more nihilistic than me. Or, like, I guess he's, like, more at peace with, like, the lack of free will than me.
I do that. Well, if I try and pay attention to the actual mechanism by which that's happening, in the way that I was trees and more, but at the same time, the most obvious and straightforward thing in the world, because you interact with any event, including mental events.
Yes, that's what free will means, but it's not what free will is. And I said, but the problem is you've just used the term free will twice. You use the same term each time, and that's your problem. You need to be able to explain that. So I totally agree that we can use science to explain events, but I also think there are some things which science can't explain just because it's the wrong tool for that mode of explanation. And the pithy line I have for this is, even if science could explain everything, and there is an if there, because
I'm dragging Adalink to chat.
Oh, hey.
Even if science could. Hey, what's up?
Oh, wait. on me. No. Hello. Oh, wait. Can chat hear me? Oh. Oh, wait.
Yes, they can hear you.
Okay. I've never done this before. Oh, okay. This is exciting. I've never done this before. So, hello, chat. Oh, wait. Can chat hear me? Okay, I hear my own voice. Okay, you know what? I'll just get off of YouTube Live for a second and just speak. I guess. Where do I even start? Like, first of all, sorry. Like, okay, tone doesn't translate word to text. So like, I've had that issue before. Sometimes people think I'm being mean, but I'm like, no, it's just that tone doesn't translate word to text.
Yeah. No, I don't think you're being mean. I think I'm being mean, if anything.
Oh no, it's okay. Okay. You know what's funny? I was actually writing my novel, and like, cause okay, I bring that up because my novel, like, I wrote a lot about like, I feel like I brought it up before in the chat in Discord, right? But like, when I talk about labor, right? Because I'm interested in labor, like the idea of like people working and stuff like that. I've always found it interesting because I feel like that's the last pillar of humanity that we have yet to like fully resolve. Like, yeah, in politics, like, we have democracy, right? And obviously with the founding fathers, you had them studying Rome and the Republic and all this and that, and you saw how Caesar became a dictator. The last pillar that we have yet to resolve is the economics of it all, because, I mean, like, something interesting about slavery, right? Before it was, like, racialized, right? You had the Romans and the Carthaginians as well. They had slavery was mostly an economic thing.
Sorry. This just because I have to go off stream and like really super soon and anyways to like go to work. So can we just focus on like the robber barons? Like what is your issue with robber barons? Why do you think that they shouldn't be justified in their existence?
Okay, perfect question. So here's the thing about like like I said earlier, the economics has been the last pillar that has yet to be truly reformed. So you have a lot of people in positions of power.
What does that mean?
Like robber barons who inevitably take advantage of other people. My issue with work in the modern sense is that you don't really have the freedom to do what you want. And I say that as someone who I think all humans are lazy in their own regard. I mean, even people who proclaim to have a lot of money and who proclaim to work so hard for that money, it's like we're all a little lazy deep down. It's fine. It's nothing to be ashamed of.
Okay.
So you have people in a position of power, economic power, forcing other people to live a certain way. It feels like
hang on, I'm so sorry. You're making a lot of generalizations here, okay? What do you mean by there's been no economic reform? There have been a huge amount of like increase in regulations and the amount of labor laws and the like regulations and just in overall economic like legislation and monetary policy in the United States from the 1900s till now. Like you acknowledge that, right?
Okay, yes. I do acknowledge that.
So what do you mean when you say there's like the economic pillar has been the last pillar that hasn't been touched? Like it has been touched. What does that mean?
Yes, thank you for specifying. Actually, it has been touched a little bit, but not to the extent of like democracy and stuff like that. So hence why you still see people like Trump coming into power.
The democracy doesn't have anything to do with the economy, right? Like you said that.
Not really. I don't think democracy and capitalism are mutually exclusive. I know you don't either, but
okay.
I'm just saying because people tend to throw that out without understanding it. But the economy does, however, affect how politics works. As a matter of fact, if you study the French Revolution, for example, right? You see that a lot of economic issues led to political violence. And you see the same thing here. You brought up Luigi Mangione, which I did agree completely. It took the political violence took away from the real conversations that could have been had and the real issues that could have been solved. And but the cycle is that political violence tends to happen because of economic and political issues, as in the French Revolution. So it's a toxic cycle that is hard to solve. It's like I said, it's a really complex question. Sorry.
Very random to just bring up the French Revolution. Okay. You're getting a little off track here from the robber barons. You said that rich, like powerful people are forcing laborers to work in or to be in like whatever lifestyle that they want. Like you feel like they're being forced to do something. Can you elaborate on that?
So okay, let's in general, right? When you work a job, you are told to do a certain amount of hours, even in mostly in corporate, right? I'm mostly speaking about corporate stuff because obviously.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
you have the choice to go into corporate. Like you don't have to go into corporate if you don't want to. You could
Yeah,
work
but
as a
the idea is still the
freelancer.
same. You can't opt out of like into the rat race, as they call it. You can't really opt out of like choosing to work or not because you don't really have a choice in the matter,
What
which is
what is that?
it's entirely my issue. I feel like
So your
if
issue
I
is
was to
just that
give
like
you
people have to work just in general, like any type of work, everyone should just not be doing anything?
not any type of work, like obviously work can be defined in many different ways. I feel like my issue is the work that as we see it today. Work is like,
But
you wake up every morning, you go to some
but
place,
okay,
you
but
do what
hey,
you're told.
that's your
Sorry.
very hyper specific corporate work. Like you could, I wake up at 12. My day job doesn't start until like my shift doesn't start until 5. I don't. You don't have to work specific hours where you wake up and are killing yourself 8 hours a day in the morning if you don't want to. You can get into
But that's
like
the thing. That's
different.
most people, really. That's most people,
But then
especially in the lower
that's
classes.
not a systematic top down like we are oppressing you as the powerful people in like that's not like a systematic widespread thing. That's just like people not having the agency or whatever power or whatever like
Well, I'd say it's more of a subtle oppression, not so much, like an oppression that you see in a dictatorship. It's more subtle because people. The thing about people
But
is
you
that
didn't
under
describe
certain
it as it
environments,
being subtle. You said that these laborers are being forced to participate in this endless rat race and that it's like the most like you are painting this to be a very very like wide scale magnitudely like issue, like we need to do this major reform, and I understand like how political violence could be like attributed to this, and then when I'm pushing you on it you're like, yeah, well, some people, and it only happens to some people, like, those aren't the same thing. Those are two completely different levels of magnitude of, like, concern for these issues that are this, like, I'm trying to follow where it gets to the intense part.
how do I explain this? Thank you for grilling me, by the way. I do like being questioned because it does help my perspective to form my perspectives better. When I say subtle influence, right? I mean like the idea that people feel that they need to work a certain way, and I didn't define work as the way that I see work as it truly should be is that people are the thing about humans is that we are curious. We are a curious species. I can't again. I'm sorry if I go off topic. It's my autism and like I study a lot of topics, different topics. It just fascinates me. I'm sorry, but anyway, humans in general are just we are a very curious species. Like as when you're a kid, right? And I remember being a kid, you are very curious about the world. You are very curious about knowledge. But when you grow up, you are forced to live a certain way by the systems which you grew up under, and to some extent, right? It's not as radical outside of the U.S. as in like I don't know the Middle East or something like that. You get what I mean, right? But the basic idea is that people don't really
Okay, but
have as much
alright.
freedom as they could be having.
I mean, I'm only saying this because I literally have a philosophy video put up in front of me right now. But like, if you're gonna sit here and tell me that you're forced to do things because of your surroundings and because of your influences, like, yeah, that's life. We don't have free will. As humans, we live in a causal reality, and everything that we do is a result of things that have already been set in motion by things outside of our control. Like, that is just an objective truth. I acknowledge that. I'm not gonna push back on my issue is that inherently doesn't lead to, all right, because people are forced to do things and sometimes in certain situations and things that they don't like, now we need to make it the case where everyone, I don't even know what your post-growth economy is, but like where no one's allowed to grow GDP or money, no one's allowed to make money. What is
Well, I do have a specific problem with GDP as if you're only using it as the only measurement of an economy, then yeah, it is pretty bad.
Well, if you're
'Cause
only
you also have
using
to-
anything as the only measure of anything, that's pretty bad.
Well,
If I'm
people
only
tend to measure it
using
in
my
GDP.
height as my measure
That's
of
my
my
thing.
health, that's probably pretty bad. If I'm only using my hair color as a sign of my like ethnicity, that's probably inaccurate and probably not like gonna give me the full story, right? Like, but no one does that.
I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, we should also be using stuff like the Gini complex, which measures economic inequality,
So
stuff like that, intermix with GDP.
who's only using GDP as a marker of the economy?
Well, governments tend to only like commonly use GDP for the most part.
Do you think the government only considers GDP when they're doing calculations on anything and monetary policy?
As far as I see it, yes.
You don't think that they consider unemployment rates or job growth or like yield returns or inflation or economic, like the wealth gap or like inequality? You don't think that they look at any of those things at all?
Yes, but I just think the execution is bad.
So that's what I mean? Okay, so there we go. That's what I'm saying. If the execution is bad, then that's a problem with the execution. That's not a problem with the system, right?
I would say, okay, wait. There's two things here that I have to mention. We're speaking about this in a modern sense. When I talk about post-growth economy, I mean it more in like a future sense, if you get what I mean. Like using technology for sustainability instead of growth. Those are things that are like outside of like our modern realm, if you get what I mean. Because these are, feel like these are new things that are coming up in our society because we really haven't explored them yet.
I do not get what you mean, but if this is a future thing, then why don't we just talk about the present then and not extrapolate it to the future? So do you think that the government
we can talk about the present.
So the government
I don't mind.
now, do you think that they are considering all of the external factors outside of just GDP?
I would hope so. I mean, this administration, I don't really have faith that they're competent.
Okay,
I'm sure we agree on that.
This administration is an anachronism in history.
Yeah.
Is not going to be as like normal. So
okay, if I'm speaking in a modern sense, I would. We do. The thing is that we do have the technological conditions and the societal conditions to create things like the 4-day work week, but we don't do them because it feels like human progress as a whole, right?
What do you think is the biggest thing stopping us from doing a 4-day work week? Like, do you think it's the government, or do you think it's people not wanting to lose out on money on doing a 4-day work week?
I think it's a wide combination of just multiple things, not even just capitalism. I think it's just a general sense of people tend to be afraid of change overall. Unless something very radical happens that they're forced to change very quickly. I keep bringing up the French Revolution, but yes, it's my current obsession for some reason. But same thing happened in the French Revolution. You had people like that were forced into a certain position in which they had to change, and we are reaching that point in this time and age as technology keeps growing. We're going to be forced to look at work differently and to look at capitalism differently, because if you go back to the 80s too, right? Reagan was the one that started this whole trickle-down idea. Like the idea that if you lower taxes on corporations, it'll come back to us. But it hasn't really gone that way. If anything, it's gotten worse because of that. Because obviously when you give power to corporations more, they will hoard that wealth. And with that wealth comes power. And that's how you get someone like Trump in the government, who inherited his wealth, not worked for it, as he would want you to believe. Most of the wealth in this country is inherited. That's a fact, and it's not really conducive to progress. Do you get what I mean or no? I feel like I'm throwing in word salads, but it's.
I'm having a hard time following your critiques because. Like you tried, like you did like the Reagan thing where it's always Reagan's fault, like Reagan is evil and everything's Reagan. But you were hating on the robber barons in 1900s, and you're making it seem like the capitalist system has always been this evil. But then you're saying that it's only because of Reagan and like the neoliberal era, and you're just mixing, and then you're bringing up the French Revolution. I feel like you're just like not like contextualizing this properly in history, like you. My claim, my point with capitalism is, historically speaking, it's provided really fucking good outcomes for the time. It gave us a lot of good innovation when we needed it, and it gave us a lot of good growth when we needed it. It gave us a lot of good power when we needed it. It like really filled in those gaps of everything, and there were a lot of problems with it. But as history progresses, as we saw trials and tribulations, we were able to address those problems. Like, oh, all of these food industries are letting rats live around in the fucking meats. Maybe we should put regulations on that. Maybe we should put, oh my god, all these children are working and making the Transcontinental Railroad. Maybe we should put child labor laws in place. Like, we are going in the positive direction. We are making the amendments that need to be made, right? It's just so confusing to me that you keep on jumping around these different points in history, pointing to all of them as being part of this like big evil capitalistic monster, and then talking about like some hypothetical future post growth as a result of that, without acknowledging any of like the any of like the solutions that we've been doing like this entire time.
Okay, I see where you're coming from now. I think I have a clearer picture of what you're trying to say. So, yes, the thing is, human progress will always, I think it'll always be positive at the end of the day, because most people are decent. I don't see most people as evil. I see most people as decent. The thing is that I think capitalism just, yes, what it did show success, right? It has given us material well-being. I don't think it's exactly provided for psychological needs, if you get what I mean. Like, I just see capitalism as like, it's a step. It's a step in human evolution. But what would be the next step after capitalism is the question that it's a question that's been on my mind ever since I studied this.
You just didn't address anything that I said, like, at all.
Wait, really?
Like, I gave you a defense of capitalism, and your response was like, okay, but I just see that as okay, but like, we're just gonna move past that. Why the fuck would we move past it if it's going so well? You need to fight me on why we need to move past it.
Arya, I'm not moving past it. I'm saying that you make good points, but I'm saying that capitalism is just, it's an idea, and ideas don't really last forever, right? I'm saying, like, it's not really going to last forever. There will be something after capitalism, especially considering the amount of technological growth, which takes away the entire idea, like the entire idea of a manufacturing job, for example. And the thing, manufacturing jobs today, under Biden and Trump, by the way, they've been trying to bring them back, despite the fact that they're very difficult, and those are jobs that are meant for machines. So, but if you take away the manufacturing jobs, there's a lot of jobs today outside of manufacturing that are not really, like, oh my god, how do I say it? You know what, I should write my ideas down like you do. Give me a second. Let me go to the notes. I know you have to go to work soon, but let me go to the notes.
I do.
God, I wish there was a way for me to, like, put this on the speaker.
Hang on, I'm gonna mute myself on you and talk to chat for a second. I'm going to drop a link to the Discord, or maybe Hunter can do that because I'm putting on mascara. And then I'm gonna join the public waiting room after, just so I can continue talking to him. But I do have to get off stream and go to work. But I'm like, I'll continue the conversation. I don't want to cut him off in the middle. So, thank you so much for that, Hunter. I'm gonna drag us over to the public rooms, and you can hop in and listen if you want.